Sweet. Okay, it says it on my end. How does it look on yours? Sweet.
Yeah, it says, yeah, I got it up in the corner.
Cool. Hi everyone. My name is AJ. Welcome to the Money Store. Today, I have an interview with a good friend of mine that I've just met recently. His name's Israel, and yeah, Israel. Thank you for coming on. And I don't know what. Say hello. Who are you? Yeah, you can take it from there.
Well, guys, my name is Israel. Um, and a lot of people may recognize me, my face from Facebook. That's, I think, most of my activity online has been based out of. A lot of you guys are going to know that I'm also a Valdez. A lot of people know the Valdez family, somewhat of a pretty well-known family in La Luz del Mundo. There's a lot of people that do believe that there are some elite families in La Luz del Mundo, as some people may say it, and I, I'm told that my family is amongst some of those families because of the notoriety with my grandfather, who was Pablo Valdez. For a lot of you guys know about him and have heard of the street out in La Hermosa Provincia, the name named after him.
Mm-hmm.
I myself, I'm born and raised in the church up until maybe 20 years ago or so. And
So where was it that you were born? And like
I was born in San Diego, California.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I'm giving all this information, with the idea that people already know who I am. I'm very outspoken. My mother's very outspoken. I have several other family members that are already online on YouTube showing their faces and stuff like that. And I know it's something that's difficult for a lot of other people to do. And with me doing so, I'm hoping that, I can encourage other people to understand that it's just something that I think needs to be done by other people. There does need to be numbers of people that need to come out and just kind of encourage other people to speak up. And even if something never even bad happened to you in the church, it's not about something bad happened to you in the church. It's just you understanding that maybe what you were taught growing up is against your morals and your ethics now as an adult. I think people do get older, and I think people should be allowed to feel different than your parents are raising you to believe. And that's something I think we'll get into a lot later on. But for me, that was something that growing up, I could never get into the church. La Luz del Mundo for me, and the way that I was raised, I think I was raised, quite different. Because I think some people in the church, some kids are kind of sheltered in a sense where sometimes they only allow you to play with kids from La Luz del Mundo, and your moms and your dad only hang out with the other brothers, and so you're always hanging out with other kids. My mom and my dad, well, not so much my dad, but my mom raised us around a lot of other people, outside the church, and so we got to see and feel a lot of other ways that other kids weren't allowed to feel, with being involved in things that are del mundo, what they call things that are of the worldly things that they, not considered to be, accepted in the church. So with that happening too, I think my mentality also was always very different. People also did question, about things about our church and why my mom wore long dresses and stuff like that. And I grew up to have to explain it to some people, but then it also made me wonder why we do these things, when, also growing up, you hear in church that, gentiles, they do this. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, but the sort of things that you're pointing at, that you're painting and discussing right now is more like about like the sort of black and white thinking that they like go through a lot of effort to stamp into your life. So when you're saying that some of the kids don't grow up with, so some of the kids don't get to hang out too much with people outside of church, with other kids outside of church, it's because like they're too busy caught up in like choir, or they're doing extracurricular activities, or they have an event that to do next week or some, things like that. There's also the there's also the sort of terminology. I actually recently did an interview with an ex-Mormon recently, and I want to plug that here because it's not going to be on this channel. It's going to be on her channel, My Spiritual Life. But over there, I one of the things I discussed was the sort of like language, like a specific vocabulary that happens, and how yeah, I didn't discuss gentiles, surprisingly enough. I forgot about that one, but that's the most important one, where it's just a lot of black and white thinking. Just like everyone that's part of the church here is a brother. Everyone else, literally everyone else, all billions of people ever are Gentiles. And Gentiles is a word that's like used in the Bible or something like that to mean non-Jewish person. But the way LLDM like flips it is to mean that those that aren't of Christ or something like that, those that aren't of God. So yeah, that's what you're speaking towards.
Yeah, and so me, I think I was kind of fortunate to be able to be raised that way, and I think that a lot of it had to do with the fact that they weren't as strict in my family. I think that there was I don't know, my family was a little there. Everybody that knew my mom and dad, they I mean we went to church all the time, but we were known to have be into different things. My mom was the fun mom, and she wasn't like the ultra conservative hermana. There's a lot of people really like my mom growing up. Now a lot of people know her. She's a hermana Tabby. She's does videos on Luis Carlos Reyes show program on his YouTube channel, and a lot of people recognize her and recognize our faces now. And that's something I've already kind of got over a long time ago. But back to just me growing up in the church, my mind was always a little bit more inquisitive, always kind of questioned things growing up. And it was kind of hard for me to get into that. Everybody that knew me growing up knew I wasn't like that kid in the church. And if you remember in church, every once in a while when the pastor or the person that was giving the service would say the text on the Bible. And then there was always like 2 or 3 brothers that were like the fastest ones to go through the Bible, and then they would get up real quick and read it, right? It was always a race.
I remember this. Yes. It's been so long since I've actually been in the environment, but yeah, you're right. There's that. It's kind of embarrassing. Yeah, go on.
I was never that kid, but if you're amongst those top 5 of those brothers that were, or the youngsters that were always real quick, and I had the Bible with the tabs in it. And even like that, I couldn't do it fast enough. But I just was not that person. Everybody knew that I just wasn't that type of kid. And I think that a lot of that came from inside of me. I just couldn't get into that whole program. And just as we spoke before we spoke today, and when I shared with you about how there is the kind of double standard for people that are from families like mine, and things aren't expected for you to. You're not expected to do things as other people are trying to do. If you're trying to be into La Obra and you're not from a family like that, they're going to put you to a little bit more. You may not get to go to all these cool exotic locations in La Obra, right away. It might take you. You might never get there. If you're not in a family like that, or if you are, you might get to a really cool location, a really big church somewhere. And, that's a whole nother topic.
One thing that I want to mention really quickly is that I think they do it every year, but I know for sure, like if you're at whatever one church location, they are going to rotate the minister that's there like every 3 years or something like that. And that has some sort of purpose to it. I guess if it comes down to like, just how do you run a church? I can see some sort of purpose to that. But at the same time, like, when people depending on what family you're at and where you have a lot of family, certain church locations that also can come into play with how you get moved at whatever time. And the person deciding this is obviously like Nason. At least it's said that it's Nason. I'm sure he doesn't handle all of them, but I'm sure he for sure has some gigantic say in it. And that matters because where someone has a lot of family, it may be strategic to place a certain minister there to cultivate a certain culture within that church, or to take a minister out that has a lot of family there. You know what I mean? Go on with that.
Yeah, and a lot of people that's especially the older generation, they know and they hear and even me, I'm 44 years old, and
Hmm.
growing up, you hear about all these different reasons why they do it. You know, the main reason why you're told that they do it is just to move them around, kind of keep things fresher for whatever reason.
Hmm.
I'm really not sure what the reason is, but I'm sure that they would not want to give the look and the expectation that it's for whatever negative reason. But a lot of people that've been around in this church have heard of all these other bad reasons why some people get moved around. You know what I mean? And some
Yeah.
people get moved around prematurely before it's even time for them to get moved. I think it's around in Agosto, right? When they do that. Isn't it
Hmm.
around Agosto when they do change around the?
Yeah, I was just thinking that, and yeah, in my head, I'm pretty sure it's after August. At least
Yeah, yeah,
where I was, the changes would happen then, and it's right after the Santa Cena, and in fact, I'm pretty sure it does happen there
exactly.
because all the ministers end up going, and when they end up going, they're having their meetings and whatever, and I'm sure that's where,
Yeah,
yeah, some of the
it's after
logistics
the Santa
happens.
Cena. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
after the Santa Cena for sure. Yeah, so yeah, man. So I'm pretty much kind of telling the story of me kind of
Hmm.
being, an adolescent, and then as I got older and became a teenager, my parents split up, and I had my issues growing up. I really got further and further away from church with those feelings already of what I felt was going on in that church, and me not agreeing with a lot of the things that were part of the doctrine, and just a lot of part of the things that you see going on handled within the ministry. And I'm talking about the movimientos of the brothers and stuff like that. And deep down inside, I really did have a deep feeling that I really was not feeling the whole apostleship thing
Yeah.
and how that all came about. I mean, and I had only heard of and only seen two generations. I only had a question, and at that point there was no Nason the apostle. This
Hmm.
was Samuel the apostle. That was my generation. I kind of grew up around, and so to me, I was just like, dude, how can there be two apostles? I was like, and when this dude gets older, I'm already thinking even before this dude even got sick,
Yeah.
he's gonna be the next guy.
Yeah,
So
everyone thinks this, but the culture obviously is like, well, why are you even thinking about that? If you were to voice that, the reaction from the group would be, just why are you thinking about that?
yeah,
Appreciate him now while he's here,
yeah.
and yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, I also growing up in the church too. There was instances where I was just talking to my mother about what there was times when there were brothers and not hardly ever sisters, but mostly brothers. Every once in a big while, not all. It didn't happen all the time. Where in the middle of the church service, you see a church service happen or whatever, and the service would be about whatever subject. But every once in a while, there'd be a certain brother that would speak out against something that was part of the doctrine, and it would become like a big debacle. And I remember growing up, there was at least a few brothers that were kind of, you know, put out of the church because they kind of got into this whole argument in the middle of a service that had something to do with their doctrine, you know what I mean, or they're opposed it or whatever. And then, a lot of people, if you're from a bigger church, there might be some very well-known people that you knew that were, thrown out of the church for a long time or probably forever. Amongst the Luz del Mundo, there's a lot of older people that kind of didn't go with the change because the church has changed throughout the years. I'm 44 years old, and
Mm.
I've heard the stories of when La Luz del Mundo, the members didn't used to go to the doctor. They would have to pray on it, right, to get better and all stuff like that. And then, I heard those stories of stuff like that going on from before I was born, from around the time that, my grandfather was first started going to the church, and even from times when my dad was a little boy, they wouldn't just take your doctor; they'd have to try to pray for it,
Hmm.
pray on it or whatever. And then, so I hear those stories. I'm getting older. And in my short lifetime as a child, I hear these stories about how strict it was. And I remember we couldn't play with toy guns. We couldn't, you couldn't watch cartoons on TV. You weren't, sometimes there were some kids that weren't allowed to watch TV. And
Yeah.
definitely the radio. The radio is a big thing. You can't listen to music on the radio.
Hmm.
And so as I get older, the things start what used to not be accepted starts all of a sudden to be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm approaching my late teens, I think early 20s. I want to say very early 20s. I might have been like 21. I
Mm-hmm.
remember going to a party in San Diego that they made for one of Samuel Joaquin's sons, and I won't quote who it is because I don't remember who it was,
Mm-hmm.
but I remember they had a whole party with some of the guys from the church there dressed in drag as the
Mm-hmm.
Spice Girls. And anybody that goes to San Diego church, and if you watch this video and you went to this party, you even remember this party. First off, in the church, people dressing in drag is not supposed to be accepted, right? And then just dancing in general is not supposed to be accepted. It's crazy,
Yeah.
So I'm watching all these things transition throughout the years where what was not cool before is now cool all of a sudden. It's just solidifying my belief that this is a doctrine that is morphing into something where they're kind of adjusting to the times. I think to kind of keep the people in, draw people in to show, oh, okay, look, we're having fun and stuff like that. But then also to keep the people in and show them that, hey, look, we can have fun. We can be that cool church. Because, if you've ever gone to churches outside like Mundo, there's a lot of other churches. If you've ever been to, say a Baptist church, and I'm not stereotyping because, I have friends of all different type of religions, and I've gone to all the different churches, and there's a different vibe to all the different type of churches. And
Yeah.
you go to the evangelical churches, or my mom used to take us to this big mega church out here where we live at, and it's such a cool feeling. It feels like a concert. So that's La Luz del Mundo is almost trying to get to that level now, almost that mega church feel to it when they do their big old productions and stuff like that. It's something.
Mm-hmm. No, go on.
It's something I never would have imagined they would ever do before, ever in my lifetime.
Yes. Yeah, you're probably you're gonna be the so far like the oldest person to ever have been on the channel, and like the church can't deny that there's definitely been changes to different aspects of the culture and different aspects of the services and so on. And so then like what happens when things do change and people don't it doesn't like light a spark in their head that eventually catches fire to create some sort of more room of doubt. I don't know, for some reason it doesn't happen. And yeah, what you're saying about like things like all the production that's happening, the sort of different wings of the organization that are starting to like unfurl the function of like a group like APS and what it's trying to do with young people. We'll totally get into that. And then yeah, like real changes too. It depends. Sometimes there are ministers that are like really, really strict, and they just speak a lot. They get up a lot. They're always demanding attendance a lot, and it kind of depends on just what sort of rapport that they have with the congregation. But then at the same time, there's also the this like relaxing of rules now. The same thing with beards. That's one that I feel like I started noticing, at least, in whatever I got to see in the last couple of years, where, yeah, there were some men who were just having beards and you weren't supposed to. And that's probably like the strictest thing ever on men. There's great like double standards between how women's like bodies and appearances are policed and their behaviors as opposed to like to the men. But yeah, I would see more people with beards, and the justification for not having them was saying things like, that you'd look too Muslim, or it looks unkempt, or it's not it's not. Yeah, I'm not too sure what it is, but it's something dumb that they place there.
I'm shocked to hear that right there, because like I told you, there's certain things that certain members aren't held to, certain rules that certain members aren't held to. If you're from a certain family or a certain distinction within the church, because I mean, growing up, there was people that had beards. I don't know if it was an 80s thing or something, but even later in the later after the 80s into the 90s, there were certain people that did. But I'm kind of actually shocked to hear that. I didn't know about that, about the whole beard thing. Yeah, but then like I said, I grew up around a bunch of people that did have beards, but they were like the OGs from San Diego, and you dare say anything to them because you don't want to lose those members. But then they're not going to stop going to church over a beard. I'm pretty sure if you tell those members they have to shave their beard, they're that level of brainwashedness that they would probably shave their beard.
Mhm.
And I'm
Let's no, yeah, this is good. Let's get into like some of the meat of the conversation. Can you tell me about like so in some of the conversations that we've had, you've talked about like about Guadalajara and growing up there, and I don't know how far back do your visits to there go? How much time have you spent there, like overall? Um,
well,
yeah, anything like
yeah,
that.
I was so I was born in the church. So I was taken out there since birth. I
Hmm.
was born in July, and I want to say my mom said she took me out there like pretty much the next month, July 21st. I don't know if she did or not. But
Hmm.
I mean, I was going out there since birth,
Hmm.
and I always remember going out there, not staying at my grandfather's house, going to play the futbolitos. I don't know if they still do that right there.
Oh yeah, I
Uh,
totally played those. The people there are brutal.
yeah, yeah, the
My
futbolitos.
cousins are brutal at the game. I've played futbolito here with like
Yeah,
I'm just gonna say it with like white people that just non
yeah,
Mexicans, and
it's not
people
the same
would
way.
get mad at me like, why are you doing those techniques? Why are you revving this thing up? I'm like, it
Yeah,
works. That's how you win. But yeah, I'm sorry. Go on.
that's funny you say that. Yeah, so yeah, I remember going to the futbolitos
Hmm.
and running around the whole Glorieta, walking over to La Pablo Valdez to get these tacos, going to La Unidad, which is where they got the little sports complex right there on La Pablo Valdez,
Hmm.
going to the arcades, man. It's something that was I look forward to going out there. And at some point, coming out of second grade, my grandfather had been down visiting in San Diego,
Hmm.
and I come home on my last day of school, and I knew they were gonna go back to Guadalajara that day. And I get home, and my parents tell me to say bye to them, and they're kind of telling me,
Hmm.
"Hey, you don't want to go with your grandma and grandpa?" And I'm like, yeah, I want to go. You know, you're a little kid. You're like, oh, I'll go. You know, and I didn't have a
Hmm.
problem going anywhere. I wasn't a shy kid. And it's like they had my bag packed and everything or something, man. And I got in the car with them, went to the
Hmm.
airport, flew to Guadalajara, get there, ended up spending the summer there and lived there for almost 2.5 years. I want to say about 2.5 years we lived out there. So I lived out there
Hmm.
by myself with my grandparents, and then went to a little town called Magdalena, Jalisco, right outside of Guadalajara for quite a little while, and had the time of my life out there. I gotta say, I had some really good experiences in the church. You know, some very memorable experiences. You know, with my grandparents growing up, with the rest of the kids growing up and everything there, and even there in Magdalena, the experiences I had growing up there as a kid in church. And then
Hmm.
eventually I went back to Guadalajara before school started and lived there in Guadalajara for the remainder of my time. So I was only there for my first summer in Magdalena and lived there for the rest of I think, almost 2.5 years. Went to school out there and then and just had a good time, man. Just running around that whole town. I mean, that whole neighborhood
Hmm.
while the church was under construction. I was talking to my mom about this yesterday. We were trying to figure out the church was under construction, and she was like, "No, the church was already done." It's like, "No, the church was kind of like halfway done, where they was already starting to occupy some of the spaces to have services for, but they were still it was still under construction, not under the most heaviest of construction that I had ever seen, because I had seen the heaviest of construction before I moved there. And it's crazy because I was
Yeah.
7, 8 years old when I lived there at this time. And so my memories of the heavy construction was from when I was even younger, but I still remember it. I remember a lot.
Hmm.
I remember the whole provincia kind of being a mess, and brothers and
Yeah.
sisters. You see the pictures and it's real. It's real. It's not just
Hmm.
pictures that they took on one day where it was super busy. No, it's kind of like that for a long
Hmm.
time, because we would go
Yeah.
down there for all the reunion, all the fiestas. We'd go down there for the February ones, the Agosto ones. Every once in a while, I want to say we'd go down there just for the heck of it, just to visit family. But for sure, we went down
Hmm.
there two, three
Yeah.
times a year before I went down there. So I got to see a lot of the construction before I moved there. But there
Yeah,
was
we're talking about the big white wedding cake church in the
yeah,
middle of Hermosa Provincia. Before there was a sort of smaller church. It was like a sort of shed looking thing, and then they moved that to the
La Bethel.
Bethel. Yeah,
Yeah,
they ended up deconstructing that and moving it elsewhere, and ended up building the big white church there. But the
yeah,
thing that's like significant and about the church is that was Samuel's like probably like one of his greatest accomplishments, because
yeah.
it just him through his power over over people's minds and through the community, he manages to like organize everyone to provide like free labor and money and just everything to construct this big
Yeah.
white like wedding cake looking church. And it's tall, and it completely overshadows everything around it. All the streets lead up to this thing. um the streets are sort of narrow, and they just all lead up to it. Everyone, like when you're walking in the neighborhood and you're lost, the thing is like literally looming over you at like every turn, and that's how you sort of orient yourself within the church. um I haven't confirmed this really, but I've read this a few times some places, and whether it's completely factual or not, whether it's completely like sound or not, it's still like a gigantic church, and I believe it's like the biggest church in like all of Latin America, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And if
I
not
think
that, and if it's not that anymore, or if it ever was, I'm pretty sure it's close to it. And it's impressive because like that was legit all the money that was extracted out of people and their labor. And yeah, there are just like wonderful like images online of this stuff. Yeah, go on.
yeah, that fact right there of him actually trying to achieve that. I know there was some goal trying to achieve with the height of the structure with
Hmm.
itself. That with I gotta say, as a person that works in construction, is quite impressive. I've done a lot of work on really really elaborate buildings. I'm actually working on something right now. It's really crazy, and it's quite comparable to something that church kind of looks like. And
Hmm.
so trying to achieve what they did at that church is something that I think that for him altogether, not just the height of the church and everything, but what it took as far as the amount of steel going into that. I think that was another big thing. They were trying to make it to where it was going to be able to take the abuse of earthquakes and
Yeah.
stuff like that. I mean, because it
Yeah,
wasn't around that.
back in the
It
80s
wasn't.
is when they would have like is when Mexico like had some hardcore earthquakes. I
Yeah,
think
I
in
want to say it was
yeah,
during the time of the construction that earthquake occurred because I was actually
the one in Mexico City, and like
yeah, I was
yeah,
in
it was that.
Guadalajara
Yeah, it was
during the earthquake when we felt it all the way to Guadalajara. I remember being on the second floor of
yeah,
my grandfather's house when we
for real.
started feeling it. Yeah, so even under construction, it didn't have any issues. You know, that church. The other thing I was going to get into too is the trying to get it the architect that they got, to try to achieve and create the structure. I think there's a whole story behind it, the architect and everything, and trying to acquire the correct architect. This guy wasn't playing around. I mean, even at the time when it was built, it was something that I want to say was ahead of its time. I mean, there's still
Hmm.
structures like now built that look like this, that kind of crazy with these curves and stuff like that. There's a famous architect named Frank Gehry that kind of
Hmm.
creates these sort of structures with the curves and stuff like that. And it's just a style that back then was ahead of its time. And this guy Frank Gehry that creates stuff like this is a world-renowned architect.
Yeah,
Was barely in the infancy of creating them.
yeah.
He
I'm seeing some of his stuff right now.
Frank
Um,
Gehry.
yeah,
Frank Gehry is
it's
amazing, but
interesting.
that's not the architect that he acquired. I'm just saying
Hmm.
that this with the similar type of
Yeah.
architects. And I'd like to find out the information on the architect. We talked about there's a lot of information out there that's actually known. It's no
Hmm.
secret of who this architect was. There's nothing shady about that. It was something like we said. Samuel was like extremely proud of with this church. It's
Hmm.
pretty cool, man. And within the structure itself, they talk about we've heard all the stories of the underground, you know, the underground places, the rooms and stuff like that. I've seen the large areas where they have
Hmm.
the large meeting, you know,
Hmm.
not meeting places, but just it's like overflow area for the brothers. So like when it's full upstairs, they send them downstairs and they got the big old screens and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
then they got hallways that take you to other places and stuff like that. It's really
Hmm.
elaborate. So when you come to think about everything else that you hear, in the media, and we're talking about this with the tunnels and stuff like that. I mean, I can confirm from when I was a kid and we used to ride around there. There were a lot of hallways,
Hmm.
and this was when the church wasn't in the completion. I can't say for sure that they took you straight to a room or whatever because I never entered those areas. But the to hear these stories and stuff like that that we hear,
Yeah.
you know, it's not hard to believe that the
Yeah, before we get into
place is
that, I actually
impressive.
have some comments on the tunnels. But before we get into that, I also want to touch that like the reason that this church is like so gigantic, the reason that the big white waiting cake church is so gigantic and like tall and um just tall for the purposes of being tall is it's out of competition with like the Catholic Church. You know, it's a sort of
Yeah,
to put it like very
yeah,
crudely, it's a sort of dig measuring contest with the Catholic Church there in Guadalajara, Catholic Central of Mexico.
yeah,
And about the tunnels. So yeah, we're mentioning the tunnels because that's a sort of one major like talking point that it has gained a lot of attention within the media as of recent. But yeah, the uh, I don't. Well, whenever a La Luz del Mundo person, I've seen them like deny that there are no tunnels. They just don't know, and it's basically like, yeah, there are tunnels. Samuel used them definitely when he's doing his presentations. I remember at least one incident where I had known of the tunnels, and he at some point just he ended church and then he went behind his little podium or something, and there's a little like sort of wall of stuff behind him. uh he has a podium, and basically, yeah, he would just walk back there and then it was over, as opposed to like other exits of his where he goes down the steps, he goes down the aisle, he waves bye to everyone, he goes
yeah.
outside, there's a red carpet for him, he goes up to his house, and then he goes up to the balcony of his house to go wave high and waste our time even more. um uh yeah, the tunnels are real, like if that, and we're
Yeah.
not talking about like the basement where there's a basement, I've been there, but we're talking about like actual tunnels like that stretch out from that church to Samuel's house, and apparently connects to the La Casa de Jericho. I think Jericho is a street,
Yeah, yeah,
and that's why they call it that. But also Samuel himself is his resting spot is under the church. It's in the basement somewhere. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
And I'll tell you what, I'm if the tunnels exist, I'm not even mad at you. I mean, wouldn't you build tunnels if you're creating something of this size, this magnitude? I'm not even mad at you. I mean, the now the
hmm
use of the tunnels for any type of sinister reason or
yeah,
whatever, any kind of crazy malicious purpose,
hmm
then there's a whole other reason that I would be upset about. But I mean, whether they exist or not, I mean, God, it's kind of almost expected. It's a whole lot of money that went into that place. It's a ton of money. Yeah, man. So what were we talking about? What was the next thing we were going to talk about? As far as everything else there in La Luz del Mundo in growing up in Hermosa Provincia, man, I don't know. I really can't say too much. I mean, it was a great experience growing up out there. I mean, the sense of community living out there, and we were talking about the Gentiles and stuff like that. There was a very small population of Gentiles that did live amongst us in the neighborhoods, like in all the callejones. My grandpa lived in a callejon. There was a few there that were Gentiles, but for the most part, it was probably about maybe 60, 70% brothers. And but there was always this feeling there at in the community that yeah, there was like two different classes of people when you really didn't really mingle with the Gentiles, you know what I mean? And really they made it almost to where you really didn't even have to leave the neighborhood to conduct any kind of business. They had
yeah,
everything there.
totally, yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
everything there. Yeah, now I hear they got like a bank and this and that. Now they got like a bigger hospital. They used to have a little clinic, but now they hear they got the Hospital de Siloé, and there's I'm sure I haven't been there in a long time. You
hmm
know what I mean? And now much as I desire to go there, I don't think it's okay for me to go there anymore. With me
yeah,
being
it's
so outspoken about my
mhm.
opinions on the church.
Yeah,
um,
I would definitely feel weird walking around the neighborhood alone.
yeah,
Not to say that, I would get jumped or anything, but I would just feel weird, because people might know my
you
name.
know,
They might go, and someone might go over and like try to talk to me, ask me who I am, what I'm doing
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Um
Well,
and yeah, it's weird thinking about that. I'm determined to
you're
go back one day. but
Yeah,
hopefully in different circumstances and some,
you're
yeah.
younger than me, so I'm
Uh-huh.
curious to know if even when you went there, because you've obviously been there
Yeah.
in the more recent years than I have.
Hmm.
Did they have the why did they walk around with the big old sticks? Did they still have those guys walking around? There's like
So
guys like in
not walking
army
around, but
uniforms.
definitely we had some sort of like uh Roman centurion looking people that would stand right next to the door outside of church along the
Hmm.
red carpet for Samuel or Nathan whenever they walked out. It was kind of
Hmm.
ridiculous, and they would literally stand there for all day
Yeah,
long.
yeah,
You know, yeah, that's
yeah.
one way of like indoctrinating someone. Is just ask them to go
No,
do
no.
it, and
They
yeah.
they actually had these actual dudes that were like part of like the security force, almost like a police,
Hmm.
not really police units. They were just like in the military uniforms, and they carry these big old long like staffs, almost like big old wooden sticks, and they roll around the whole neighborhood there, the colonia.
Hmm.
Oh, excuse me, regulating on everything that was going on in the neighborhood, pretty much putting everybody in check and stuff like that. But that was the visible security service that that I could speak of,
Hmm.
and you know there's obviously everybody a lot of talk about the other security services involved in there, but I remember that going on there in that church, and then there was also growing up there too, running around the neighborhood. Um, if you live there long enough, every once in a while you run into the Joaquines. That's something that wasn't really rare. Every once in a while, you see someone come to like a balcony, and then all of a sudden you hear kind of a whole little crowd of people, and you kind of know that the screams are coming from over there, La Casa Grande, and that wasn't something that was so super rare out there. And then his kids would run around. Well, he had kids. He has kids at different ages, and I was talking to you about this other day that he had a son that was older, a little bit older than me, and this is Nason because Nason's only like he's like 10 years
50.
older than me, a little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit under 10 years older than me.
Yeah. He's 52 now.
52. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're
And you're somewhere in your mid
44.
40s. Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy, he used to run around the neighborhood. I remember on these little mopeds and their little gas powered scooters.
Yeah.
And you run around the church. I mean,
Hmm.
run around the church and through the whole neighborhood, kind of terrorize everybody, mess with the girls. And that's what I remember. And I remember we all used to get together at the in this hall that was separate from the main church. And I was telling you the story about how we had this brother named Mano David. I can't remember what his last name was. I was supposed to get his last name before today. But
Hmm.
anybody from
Nah, it's
La
okay.
Provincia is gonna remember this Mano David. He used to be in charge of the boys' uh, church service, and there would be maybe I can't remember exactly, but there was quite a few kids there, over 100 kids, quite possibly,
Hmm.
maybe all the way up to 150 kids. Because the colonia was big, there was a lot of boys and girls there from the church,
Hmm.
and we all congregate there on Sundays. And if you showed up late, man, this Mano David will whoop your ass.
Yeah.
Whoop your
It's
ass.
he's so well known that literally I grew up knowing who this dude is. I literally haven't talked about this dude with for years with my parents. It's something that my parents would like. I'd hear them talk about as yeah, around the dinner room table, something like that. And I every once in a while I heard about this dude, and it's been years since I've heard about this dude. And when you mentioned him the other day, I was like, I know, I know who this man is.
Yeah, yeah,
the his overreach of power from like decades ago on
yeah,
the bottom of other people's kids.
yeah.
Um,
Oh my God. We used to, yeah.
it
So we used to
stretches up.
stuff.
His legacy lives on. Yeah.
Yeah, so we used to stuff our pants with the libretas that we take notes on and stuff like that. We stuff
Mhm.
a whole bunch of our pants, and then if you get away with them, and him not notice them, I mean, yeah, that was your lucky day. But if he saw him, he'd whip your butt even more. That mess you up, man. So this is just kind of to kind of give an idea how strict he was. He's a jerk. So I was telling you that this my son would come into the church to the little hall where we all gather, and he would show up and he'd run these scooters all the way up to the front door and they shut them off. And obviously interrupting the whole service, but they would still keep talking because this is one of Samuel's kids, and they just don't even make a big deal about it. He walks in, and I was telling you that he walked in a bunch of times with with like Halloween makeup all over his face or fake nails through his fingers and freak us all out.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole reason I'm telling this is because there's like this whole reason. I mean, there's this whole reverence that you're taught to have for church. When you walk in, you're supposed to have respect, and you're not supposed to laugh. You can't. I remember you weren't even allowed to cross your legs in church. I got in trouble for that one day when I was sitting in the very front banca. I'm sitting there getting all comfy. There wasn't too many people in the front banca of me, and little by little, I go on crossing my leg,
Mm-hmm.
and within like 30 seconds, the brother that's giving the service, he turns his attention to me and made a fool out of me in the middle of church, and telling me that I should have crossed my legs. I don't know if it had anything to do with the cross at all, but the whole church is all about being against the cross. Yeah, man. But so yeah, they're real strict about stuff like that. And so what I'm getting at with the whole Nason thing, man, is I remember there was this whole double standard. They didn't get on him. Don't you think that this Hermano David that had this crazy reputation for being a jerk will grab Nason and whip him for that? He never did. He never did. And that's just among some of the most famous things that I think that would occur, because even in the neighborhood, he would terrorize a lot of the kids in the neighborhood on the scooters, and we do messed up things. And I remember they'd come up behind kids sometimes and grab them and drag them from the mopeds and in the dirt, and out there,
Yeah.
there's a lot of dirt, and the callejones are made out of cobblestone,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just a lot of crazy stuff. But
It
but
really was cobblestone. I remember a lot of those streets weren't like flat, nice pavement streets. I remember since like since like the 2000s at some point they changed it, but yeah, those streets weren't paved. Those streets were like very rocky. Definitely could not ride a skateboard on them, and it was only in recent years that they actually like paved those streets. And again, like that, the pavement of the street like came many years of certain surrounding streets, but it came many years after like the construction of this big white thing, that towers over
yeah.
everything else.
Yeah. So, growing up and observing this double standard, even as a kid, you don't even know what double standard means,
Mm-hmm.
but you know that this kid that from this family doesn't get in trouble like you would. I mean, I wouldn't get beat that much because even there, even knew I was Valdez, the mom David did whip my butt a couple times, but I learned to not show up to church late. But observing and noticing that this from Joaquin and how they treated him was really something that you would think wouldn't be accepted. You would think that he would be amongst one of the kids that would be there early with his Bible and would know all the textos of the Biblia and all that stuff. But in fact, he wasn't. And it's something that I think at a young age started getting engraved in my head, and just kind of knowing that was wrong, and it was contrary to what I was taught. Why do
Mm-hmm.
these people do the things that we're not allowed to do? I was talking to my mom about this, and she doesn't remember us being or me hanging out too much with the family. But there was a time when I was living down there, and I actually went on a ride a few times to go roller skating at a roller skate rink there in Guadalajara, and it was a little bit away from the provincia. It wasn't around the corner, nothing. And I remember going with some of the Joaquines. I'm not going to mention any names right now, but I remember being in the van, going to the roller skate rink and then playing the radio. And I'm a young kid, and even at that young age, I'm still thinking the radio, the worldly things you don't listen to, and then playing the radio. And I'm 44 years old. Michael Jackson's a big thing, and Michael
Yeah.
Jackson's on the radio, and they're all dancing and dancing, and I'm like, whoa, they're gonna go to hell. In my head, I was like, man, why is it okay for them to do that? Like in my family, you really didn't do it out in the open unless you're a little baby, you're being cute and you're dancing. But once you got older, you're supposed to know right from wrong. You're not supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
doing these things.
Yeah.
But as time passes, we start noticing that these things become acceptable. It's something that you didn't have to do behind closed doors. Even at that young age, I don't remember how old I was, but I remember them doing a big old party for Samuel for his birthday one year, and one of my cousins did a break dancing routine for him. This is the 80s. He did a break dancing routine. They did a Vicente Fernandez lookalike thing that one of my uncles did, and one of my uncles is actually very well known for doing this Vicente Fernandez things. But it's always been a thing where if it's the benefit of making entertainment or causing entertainment for the Joaquiners or Samuel
Mhm.
especially or any
Uh,
apostle, then it's all good.
I want to plug that there's a really good, really long video from Analizando la Doctrina LLDM. It's a channel on YouTube with Dante Mandela. He has a wonderful channel. I love his channel. He has a video that came out like a month or so ago, just kind of recently, and it's pretty long. And it's basically about this sort of changing in double standards around dancing, and sort of how like dancing and performance and artistry, that sort of non-church stuff, starts to get worked into the culture in the Hermosa Provincia. So around like the Independence Day for Mexico, they have a parade and they have, you know, people dancing outside of the church. I've seen fireworks that happen outside of the church. Them even like I think actually using the church itself to plant fireworks up there and shoot them out.
Yeah.
I've probably seen this for sure, but
No, yeah, I've seen it myself.
yeah, that
I
stuff has
live down
changed
here.
over time, and then just for some reason it doesn't click with people,
Yeah,
or
my
yeah,
brother is actually in a parade, and they dressed him as Morelos actually. And so there's actually a picture that's popular in our family where he's just like Morelos and La Provincia out there. So I've seen all that stuff happen throughout the years, and little by little, like for a reason, for sometimes for some occasions when I was a kid, they do like that for patriotic purposes to show, you know, to be a part of the whole community as a whole, showing their pride for as being citizens of Mexico. But then, like I said, there was other purposes that they were allowed to dance just for the purpose of entertaining the Joaquines, you
yeah.
know, and then you know, you see the hypocrisy in that as you get older, and it becomes more and more acceptable when you're taught, you know, that their doctrina is una doctrina perfecta, right? We're
Hmm.
growing up, es la doctrina perfecta. So how perfect is it, right? I mean, Jesus is supposed to be perfect, and Jesus really didn't change. Jesus was Jesus no matter what, you know. And then, you know, if you're going to talk about their doctrine, you know, and I don't want to get into that. That's
Hmm.
one of the main reasons why I agree to come on your show, because we're not going to be talking about the doctrine, and we're talking about the purpose of their doctrine to us not being a valid point of argument with them, because we both believe that it doesn't make any sense to do that. Their leaders don't abide by them. Anyhow, so going back to we were talking about, we were talking about how things have become acceptable now, and that leads me to one time, and I think this would be a good way for us to transition into the other subject that we were talking about,
Hmm.
hoping to touch on. Is one time I remember there was a video that I saw a while ago before the whole mess started with Nason, and it got stuck in my head.
Hmm.
And so when the whole Nason thing came out, I go back searching for this video. It's a video that Berea put out where they invited this rock band with this girl that was the lead singer, and she had some dudes in the background. I don't know if you ever seen that video. You ever seen that
Hmm.
video? Well,
No, no.
I'll look for it and I'll see it. Hopefully they haven't
So what?
taken it.
Okay, what happens? Mhm.
So what happens is, you know, it's a video where they bring this rock band on, and I don't know if they paid attention, but one of the rock band members has a shirt that says 666,
Okay.
and you know, this isn't like a it's supposed to be like a heavy metal rock band. The girls singing some kind of Spanish rock metal music or whatever, and the whole time during them singing the rock band, the girls that are the hosts of the show, they're going there putting up the demo horns, and it's just something that you never ever would have thought.
Where did that take place? Where
That
was that?
took place on a Berea TV show that they used to
Okay.
have,
Oh
where they
yeah.
would bring on different persons that were, I guess, del mundo del espectáculo, I guess how they would call it in Spanish, right? People that are part of
Hmm.
the entertainment world. So
Hmm.
I'll try to look for it, and I'll see it hasn't been
Yeah.
taken down. But I took just screenshots, you know, and I'm showing pictures of the dude's picture. I took a screenshot, zoomed in on it. But look at this dude's shirt. It says 6'6". Like these people didn't plan this out, or they were they just okay with it, or were they really just that cool with just trying to assimilate with people del mundo and show that they were accepting of this, you know, of
This kind of
everybody now
stuff.
that
Yeah.
they're gonna have anybody on their TV show.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
I don't know if it was
the.
well thought out or not, but
Mhm.
I picked the hell out of that whole
Uh-huh.
topic. Yeah.
Let's talk about Berea. So I guess a lot of people, you know, Berea hasn't really talked about a lot in sort of current conversations, but it's still it's just part of the church that is extra part of the church that people are attached to now, and like are starting to have careers in and whatever. So I don't know. Let's explain like Berea for people. The way I would describe it is this is a sort of, it's basically the sort of publishing house, the sort of public facing stuff of the church. So they do a bunch of the printing of all these new hymnarios that come out so often all the time, and that the lyrics change and like all that stuff. Songs are taken out, songs are put back in. Some of these songs don't even have origins in La Luz del Mundo, but they come from outside in the world, and they're sort of bent into. Anyways, yeah, that they have their own. They have channels on YouTube where they post stuff. They publishing house. They also have like a library there right outside the church, the big white waiting cake church. They have a library there, and they also have like little gift shops, little like bookstores also in other church locations. Not a lot. I don't think it's a lot, but I know for sure in certain ones they do. Is that what like Berea is to you, or what else can you add about them?
Yeah, well, to me, they're growing up. There was always, I wasn't sure that there was an actual name for, their publishing house that they had and stuff, like the people that put out their united and stuff like that. But I knew that was a big part of the church. I knew growing up there, and after I moved out of there, that there was a like little store where they sold all their goods and stuff like that. And it's just part of what they call their their favorite phrase, autoconsumo, where they create products where that within the community they all consume and make money off of basically themselves. It kind of goes back into a whole circle. It's just another way to make money. These products, to me, from what I've always known, were something that were never super cheap for people to buy. It was always something that people look forward to getting and being considered as like a big substantial gift if you got it. Like, oh my God, I got this thing. You looked at it and like, whoa, it took my family a whole lot of money to buy it, because I don't know how much they were, but
I was gifted so many hymnarios just over the years, just all the time. Those are interesting documents, like to look through. I would love to sit down and open through a couple of them that I have. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, and it goes all the way to little things from the pictures. A lot of people were talking about this the other day. A lot of people grow up with the somewhat Joaquin picture in their house. I don't recall us really having a picture in the house. If we did, we may have had it only when I was like really, really young. But as I got older, it wasn't something that we used in our house. It would be something that would be way out of my memory. And like I was saying, I remember stuff from way back when I was a kid. But we might have at one point had a picture of him. But they sell the pictures for him at a really crazy price. The chalinas that the sisters wear.
Chalinas. Also, a lot of knickknacks, like keychains, hymnarios, pens, pencils, like tie clips. Rings too. And so like what else was I going to say? I bring all this up because like Berea is just this side business that's attached to the church that it serves its purpose, and I understand why it's there, but at the same time, like, it's there, and it's still like this one way that sort of keeps people attached to the church, and it's responsible for distributing a lot of the pictures and the sort of memorabilia not the memorabilia, but the books that people need, that material. And I want to talk about the pictures of the apostles. It's not uncommon for a member of La Luz del Mundo in their home to have like a picture of the apostle somewhere, like in the living room or something. Some people have them as like the background of the phone. Some people have probably, I wouldn't be surprised if some people like carry the picture in their wallet. And then even apart from that, the hymnarios and the Bibles themselves that they print, they're definitely slapping like his face on there, on like the outside of the book, they'll have like the nice like profile like image of him, and then maybe some words about just what the book is. But then also like for sure inside they have full-blown pictures of Nathan, and people have pictures of him in their house, and like
Facebook profiles, they got the honorable thing right across the bottom.
That too. But then also like but then it's like, it's interesting when people like tell me that they have dreams of the dude, and I was like, like you shouldn't be so surprised that you had a dream of the dude. You have like 12 pictures of him in your house that you walk past when you're like getting water at 3 a.m.
Well, speaking of dreams, man, I'm just gonna bring this up real quick, and then we'll go back to what we're talking about. Man, sure. everything that's going on right now is something that I real deal have dreamt about. I've dreamt about the day that something would go on with this church to not put an end to it. I didn't always want for something to happen in this church in a bad way. You know, I don't wish for anything bad to happen to all the members or nothing like that. But I just, you know, you grow up and you see what you see from my eyes, you know, and you have the reasons that I have for not to want to believe in that church and to feel the way that these other people are so convinced of this guy's honorability and that he's innocent and stuff like that. I've never felt that way, and so I think that my feelings that led me always to have dreams of the day that this would come to an end. Yeah, man, I've dreamt about that. I mean, if that means anything, then look what my dreams brought, because supposedly it was people's dreams that put us on into place. Like, what do my dreams mean, man? You know, and that goes back to where we're talking about our belief in you being like atheist. And for a minute there, I was agnostic, and it's not that I believe in a God, but I think there's some sort of energy that made this occur. Like, you can't be a bad person and expect for something not bad to happen to you, whether it means that somebody caught on to what you were doing and then they're going to come back and punish you by the laws of the world, or whether you want to believe that it was God that intervened and caused for you to be punished for what you did. Whatever it is, there's something going on in this world. I mean, things just don't happen for no reason. You know what I mean? And whether you want to talk about it, like I said, in a way where you're talking about God intervening, or just or some other energy, or I don't know how you look at it as an atheist.
We were talking about how I feel about this whole thing happening. So here's how I feel about this whole thing happening. It's just growing up in the church and having these big like cosmological ideas that they try to shove into your head from when you're a little kid, you know, making you feel that you're part of God's chosen people. You're very special. Everyone else is a Gentile. You're not a Gentile. We have the magic man that speaks to us every once in a while, and you know, all that stuff. They acclimate you and they make you gain a sensitivity for just asking big questions and thinking like big about yourself and what your purpose is on this earth. And I mean, to some extent, I'm the farther I get away from it, the farther I stay out of church. And I feel like I realized that, yeah, this was bound to like happen. Like there are just people who just have a set amount of power over another group of people. And that power like definitely like gets abused at some point. And, and I remember when the arrest happened and sort of when those weeks were like unfurling for me, I had been mentally checked out for years. And I had my own idea of what I thought, but even then, like wherever my head was at that point, the arrest and really like having it sit in me and like really marinating in it, that brought me to think that like just like thank goodness, you know, that this is super duper proof that this whole thing is not real, and that the devil isn't actually like in the back of my head pulling me, you know, so much in the way that he had at that point. But even then it's just a lot of gaslighting, you know, within the church, and it takes a while to really have to come to the realization of what it is that one just went through, and what one can like continue to continue to go through, because you know, life doesn't just stop here. Some people are going to join other churches, and other crap might happen there too. And
the one thing you were talking about was the devil and fearing that the devil's thing. I want to touch on that subject real quick.
Sure.
And that's something that for me, I'm really thankful that I got over a long time ago, that I think is also a really difficult thing for a lot of people to come to terms with. Because I mean, we're talking about doing a video. I think for me and just for you too, it's really important for us to share more than anything, share facts and things that maybe feelings that me and you are having that perhaps other people are also having, that we got to share with other people. It's okay for you to feel that way. And that's what I'm talking about. Is for me, I'm thankful that I got over the fact of the devil being the one that's doing all these things for me a long time ago. I mean, like I told you, since I was a little kid, because of the fact that for me, my reasons for leaving were the fact that I was watching other things that I was watching other people that were in the hierarchy of the church and in the elite families do, and they were getting away with it. So for me, I was like, dude, this is all fake. Since I was a kid, I accepted that. But there's a lot of people in that church that really do got the heart invested into this. That really do have the fear of God and the fear that the devil is going to take a hold of them and cause all these horrible things to occur with them. That both me and you know that aren't true. You can leave
Yeah.
that church and have a outstanding life after that. So
Hmm.
that's one thing I do want to relay and start to try to, as we progress in this conversation, to kind of
Hmm.
confirm with people that life is wonderful after you make that choice to believe what you want to believe. If that's what you believe, you believe the way that we feel. I don't have anything wrong in that with anybody wanting to believe
Hmm.
that this dude is innocent for the rest of their lives. There's some people, we already talked about this. There's some people that are never going to be convinced of that, but there's some people that do have some type of ability to be able to go pick up the phone or the computer and look into information that we've already collected that made us feel sure of the way that we already do.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Basically, the driving like mission behind like this channel, or the driving sort of ethos is that for me, it's that yeah, it's like it's possible to reason people out of something that they were not reasoned into. No one is reasoned into LLDM. No one is. It's different mechanisms that get people in and keep people in. And then it's also like there's just better ways of thinking, and there's just better arguments out there to be had, that we don't even
yeah,
need to like touch doctrine or anything like that. How about we can just talk about the way
no,
the man has behaved, what he said, and different messages from the church, and like contradictions and like inconsistencies, and just pointing that out consistently should be enough to get people out. And basically,
yeah,
at some point they get out, and it's hard. Where do you go
yeah,
then? That's a whole separate question. But like regardless, everyone's going to have to deal with some sort of like with the effects of like of gaslighting, and with the sort of the aftershocks of like of of leaving and trying to deprogram and trying to like develop a new pace of life and a new group of people to be with, if that's what it is. um new things to like occupy your head. People have to change like their dress, like people have to get rid of all those chalinas at some point. And just what does one do with that stuff, with the images of Nason on the wall, and all the other Luz de Mundo like things that are scattered in your house,
yeah,
and like the effects of the religion on your life, in general. um
yeah,
yeah, people have to get over the gaslighting. It can happen. It's hard, but it's just a matter of like trusting that just trusting that your ability to understand the arguments, and
yeah,
just always relaying back to them, and saying, like, to remind yourself that, like, yeah, this thing is definitely not true, because I still have that.
yeah,
I'll literally have seconds every once in a while where there's just like a couple seconds where I'm like, where my brain stops and I'm like, dang, what if this whole thing is fake, or like something dumb. But it feels dumb. It feels
I,
dumb like 2 seconds later, because I'm like, no, because this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing, and I could talk about it for hours, and I have talked about it for hours with people. Yeah. Um,
no, it's funny that you say that because I feel the same way sometimes. Sometimes like I ask myself the same question, like, what is this? This is all fake. There's so many different reasons too, because it's a point where sometimes I gotta slap myself in the face and can't believe that this actually is occurring within my lifetime. It's just like
mhm,
everything else. There's so many other things that stem me in my lifetime that we're going through right now with
mhm,
everything, being in a pandemic and everything. But this is beyond that. This is beyond any pandemic and everything. This hits me harder than anything else. And it consumes me so much, even though I've been out of the church for such a long time and so emotionally unattached to the church for so long that it was easy for me to get back into it because really I am so emotionally invested into what this church has done to me. And I'm not talking about all the members. I'm talking about what they're taught to do with members like me once we leave the church. The
yeah.
gaslighting is one thing. I've had people talk bad about me online on Facebook and say all sorts of things, send me messages, and I'm talking about real crazy threats.
Mhm.
Things I won't get into, but losing the family it's a really hard thing.
Yeah,
The
that too.
control of that church to keep you there is a big thing, and once you leave, the reasons that you fear are very much true. But when you feel about something so strongly, well, like what's occurring right now, and having to choose a side, I mean, this is a really touchy subject. This isn't some dude that just got in trouble for, selling some weed on the street. You know what I mean? Everything he's being
Hmm.
accused of is really harsh. I mean, what side are
Yeah.
you going to stand on?
Yeah. And
There are. Go ahead.
it's just it's a gross like violate, just what he did, but it's also on top of it, there's a larger group of people around him, and it's just this gross like squandering of all their trust and
Yeah,
trust in like the most foundational beliefs like they could possibly have.
yeah,
Just that across the board, and because it's so shocking, for some people they just can't lock out of it. They can't unlock out of it.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And we see them also trying to push things off of themselves when and when you grow up in a Mundo, there's always big talk of not just the Catholic Church, but and for them right now, that's a big thing. That's they want to push attention on themselves. They talk about the church. Well, the Catholic Church. Guess what? The Catholic Church's time has already come. We've already been dealing with that for years. And
Mhm.
if we happen to find another religion that did this too, besides the Mundo, I hope they deal with that too. I hope they don't skip any religion if there's any people that are doing any type of harm to any type of person the way that all these people accused of these horrendous crimes have been accused of. Now, guess
Mhm.
what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry to say it. If this is true, then it's just your time has come. It's time for us to deal with you. You're next. I'm sorry that it happened to somebody you folks care about so much, but it's just the way it is. He messed up by doing this in the United States because now the United States is dealing with him in the way that they need to be dealing with, which is, a
Mhm.
whole nother subject. When we talked about how a lot of people that, you try to talk about with the legal system and how it works, they whether you lay it down for them on a piece of paper or show them how the judicial system works with all the rules and everything, how it's supposed to be broken down, or even if you tell them what's being said in the court, which is recorded, and all these transcripts, they don't even want to believe it. You turn a
Yeah.
blind eye. I don't know. It's like I used to get into discussions and arguments with people in the past. I stopped doing that. I've been non-active, not even
Mhm.
trying to do it no more. Time will tell. I'm very confident in the judicial system out here in the United States, and I'm gonna say it right now, and I'm not very proud to say it, but I've been a part of the judicial system, not
Yeah.
on not on the side of the state, but unfortunately on the side where I got in trouble when I was a kid. But so that kind of I've
Mhm.
had a conversation about how there's a lot of misinformation given about not someone in this treatment in jail and blah blah blah. And I
Mhm.
just laugh at it. 'Cause I've been there. I've been in jail. I know how to treat this guy.
Yeah,
But
there's sort of rumors. I want to go over that, not hearsay about Nason like preaching to other
yeah,
people
John.
within the church and converting them. Hearsay about like, oh, the other angels go and like sing to him, and other people can hear it, or they notice that Nason is hearing it, or something like that. Talk about like, yeah, it's just it's ridiculous. They just they just buy this stuff up. And another thing that's interesting about this is that a lot of brothers definitely don't go to jail because they good on them, they follow the rules, but the church like for sure like really doesn't want you to go to jail, obviously, and a lot of those people don't go, and that also that feeds into the misunderstandings that people have of the criminal justice system, like again with like the bail hearings, people were claiming that people were complaining about how the victims weren't showing up to the bail hearings to go talk to go like speak their truth, and it's like no, that's just step one. That's just the bail hearings where we haven't
Yeah,
gotten. We'll get to that later,
yeah,
and we haven't gotten to it because you guys are busy like shoveling money into the church, which is then being shoveled into the pockets of lawyers that are prolonging this whole thing.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. There's a lot of big misunderstanding of the law on behalf of a lot of people that have the guts to go on the actual Mundo pages and get on there and make these arguments, but they're so convinced of their misinformation that to me it's not even worth it anymore. I stay away from it now. We'll wait to see what happens. Um,
Mhm.
Well, there's not too much more I can say about that because
Yeah.
the movements in the court lately have been so long to wait for the next big thing to happen. It's like I have people hit me up all the time. Hey, so what's happening now?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know what to tell them. It's really, and I don't really try to get into too much of specifics of the legal system because I'm
Hmm.
really not a person to give advice and to give any type of professional opinion on the legal system. But to an extent, I will, as far as my own experiences and how I can compare them to what's going on in the court, and most of all that stuff is just realistic stuff as far as
Hmm.
like how people feel that this case is being prolonged. We were just talking about this yesterday about
Hmm.
how, if you watch all these other high profile cases, there's a lot of cases that have gone on for years, dragged out for years long. Some of them not so high profile that didn't involve murders and stuff like that, that maybe celebrities and stuff like that, but were, serial murders and stuff like that that take
Hmm.
a long time to resolve. So this is no surprise to me. People want a speedy trial. They're the argument of, oh, well, they don't have anything on them. That's why they haven't let them loose. And my argument to them is like, well, they also haven't let them out. And there's a big reason for that. There's a reason why they post these bails so high. Me, myself, I'm kind of shocked that they didn't post a no bail on there, because to me, a no bail is even more serious than, what's he got? Is it 90 million? I think they
It's
reduced
at
it, right?
90. So basically the first from the instance that he did get from the instant that he did get arrested within like that day or two or something like that, it was 25 million.
Yeah, I
Then
remember that.
then it got up to 50 million at some point in those first 2 weeks, and then by the time David Fields saw the case in mid July, so a month and a half after the start of the arrest, he decided no bail, and then uh, yeah, he decided no bail, and then eventually, there's more developments in the case, but as of like a year ago, when a second round of bail hearings happened, it was up to 90. But yeah, at some point it was no bail, and then that initial case, had some issues, and they had to start over from like square one. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah,
It's,
90 million is a lot. 90 million is terrifically high in Los Angeles too. The incarceration like capital of the planet. Just so many jails have just proliferated over there. The systems of incarceration over there have just like exploded the past couple decades, and the dude who now apparently holds the record for highest bail ever is apparently the guy that we had pictures of like all over our house growing up. It's really weird.
yeah.
The dude that you saw that you grew up with on the street and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, I think about, we're talking about money too. I think about how much money the church is putting into this. And it's sad to think the fact that really throughout all this, the church really is paying a whole lot of money. And I think that there's a lot of people, whether they want to think about it and accept it or not, they don't even have a problem with the fact that they're still giving ofrendas to this church,
Hmm.
still giving ofrendas to this church, giving their money to the church, and then they don't have any shame in in taking the money, knowing that the situation is going on. I'm talking about the ministers and stuff like that, knowing that they're going to be appropriating some of these funds to pay for these attorneys.
Yeah.
And I know that for I don't know if they can monitor where the money comes from to pay these attorneys, and I don't know if they can regulate whether he's allowed to use any money from the church. But I know,
Hmm.
for instance, for like the bail money, he's not allowed to use certain monies that comes from a certain place. Like the money has to come from him or
Hmm.
friends of that are probably going to put up houses or whatever to equate to the
Hmm.
bail amount has to be basically traceable funds and stuff like that. So, but
Yeah, I wonder.
there's a lot of money that comes into that church that is and we all know is not being traced. So, and I learned this from going to other churches that weren't La Luz del Mundo after I left. When it's tax time, they give you a document, a form, that says how much money you've given to a church in ofrendas. Has La Luz?
Yeah.
Ask yourself this question. This is for all the people that want to ask themselves whether we really have a legitimate argument to make about why we don't believe in the church. Here's one of them, amongst several reasons for myself. Does the church ever really give you that document for tax time? Never.
No,
I
there's
never
no
even knew about
transparency
it.
with it. If anything, the thing that they will make transparent is who is donating. Sometimes there are reports of people that have seen, you know, lists outside of in the lobbies of a church of like these people gave this much or they gave from for the New Year's thing. Yeah, there's
Did
transparency
you
there, but of course we know the function of that. But
did
yeah,
you ever see that?
as for like a nice like tab at the end of the year or something like that, no, that's not there. And some people,
Did
you
you
know, just drop dollar bills
yeah.
into the box, and but a lot of other people for sure like put envelopes. You know, people write on those envelopes. They write their names.
Yeah. And did you ever do that? Did you ever see those lists on the back of the churches ever?
I remember seeing him once.
Yeah.
I know for sure. I definitely saw it once. I can't remember exactly when, but apart from that, other church locations have it's happened.
Yeah.
Have had it happened.
I grew up seeing them constantly on the wall. They were consistently on the wall in the back of the church, and they had every person's name, and everybody can go back there and see who had money. And I heard talk of, as a kid, oh, certain people would talk bad about other people because they didn't give a lot of money, and that they knew that they had money, but they wouldn't give no money, or
Hmm.
sometimes they would talk down on the person that unfortunately didn't have the means to be able to give a lot of money. They just didn't give any money at all. I mean, what do you
Hmm.
do in that instance? But then there's some people that don't have any money at all, and they give all that they have. I've
Hmm.
seen that happen a lot. I've seen, heard of a lot of people also in the church as they get older and stuff like that. They have a family that they donate their homes to the church, and somehow the church ends up acquiring their properties. And it's
Yeah.
funny, man. On another subject with the whole ofrenda thing, man, is,
Hmm.
to me, growing up, I always noticed that it was something that was like not really. Well, I guess it's kind of forced in the church when it's time to give your ofrenda in church. The way that they go about it, and I think it's in almost a kind of in a way to humiliate the person that's not going to give an ofrenda, is the way that they vacate every row uno por uno like this. And so, like,
Yeah.
if you don't have any money and you stand there como tonto, you know what I mean? And it's like everybody knows, like, oh, that dude's not giving an ofrenda. To me, I was like, wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty humiliating.
That's something I spoke about with Morgan over at my spiritual life recently. I told her about that feature of La Luz del Mundo, where you know it's not that the little like basket of money is being passed around the bag or anything like that, where they go down to the rows. No, it's everyone. You know, you're lectured. You go inside the church. You sit down. You sing your songs, and then you sit down and you're lectured to for like an hour and a half or whatever. And then at the end, you know, when everything's over, everyone's singing and everyone's standing up and paying attention, and everyone waits their turn from to vacate like each row. They start at the back and they vacate. Everyone walks down the aisle, drops their money in. There's a line for men, a line for women. Do it, just all of it, and they'll keep singing, and they'll sing a song twice, and they'll keep going until everyone does it. And it's, I mean, just like you can't tell me that is not that doesn't add some sort of coercive elements to the organization, you know.
Yeah,
That's a feature of like almost every single church service, except maybe like the 5 a.m. ones or something like that, or maybe the Santa Cenas, they don't do it,
yeah,
but still, regardless, you know, there's a bunch of people that everyone's eyeballs are on you, and when you don't step out, and you have to have people like walk over your feet, and you have to lean back on your bench because you know people have to walk past you because you didn't bring money. You know, everyone's gonna notice, and people are gonna think like, well, just did AJ forget his wallet today? Maybe, but
yeah,
it also seemed like he forgot his wallet last week, I guess.
yeah.
Or he probably does one payment like a whole every month, you know, or something like that. But no, it's not like that. And the church could be so much better about this, you know, about like,
Yeah, but
yeah, they
the
just
thing
don't.
about it, how many times did you not bring at least a dollar? At least a dollar, so that you weren't standing there, even if it was to the
Yeah,
corner
everyone
of a
for
dollar,
sure
right?
always
At
had
least a
something.
dollar.
Yeah.
But so you know, we talk about this raking in money. To me, it was two things. It was a form of kind of lightweight conditioning you, so that you
Hmm.
kind of knew that you okay. You have to get his money. You have to give it after a minute. You don't even question it. You like before you even get to church, make sure every kid has a dollar, and then you have a dollar. You have a dollar. Your wife or $20 or whatever. So
Hmm.
you're doing that, right? So that's one thing. So after a while, it almost doesn't you don't even feel like, oh my God, I gotta give $1, and you're just already pulling money out. Everybody,
Yeah.
I went to church all the time. It was just like a normal thing. Dad gave you $1, bam. And so but then that also gets me thinking about how if they don't allow for people, if they force this to where they make it to almost everybody at least going to give $1. We've heard of all these fake numbers that they have, but think about it. Even if they don't have 5 million people, say they have 500,000 people that show up to church and throughout all the world, and each one of them at least gives $1. That's so much money, dude. There's drug organizations that don't make that much money, and I don't believe at all that they have 5 million people, but if we're talking about $500,000 on a daily basis show up, and each one of them gives a minimum $1, we know more. Some people give a whole lot more than $1, so they're making $500,000 a day. That's crazy money, dude. It's a money making scheme, dude. It's crazy. They have a lot. They have a lot to lose if they lose members. There's a big reason why you see such a big one. It seems like lately it's not so big. It seems like they kind of toned it down, but there's so many people coming out to defend them in the beginning. All the representatives, Silem, and all the other people coming out, and now you kind of seen it kind of toned down. But they have a whole lot to lose. They have a whole they invest a little bit of money into defending themselves to defend all that big amount of money. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, there's people have things to lose in terms of just like real estate value. Maybe that's something that I've thought about in Hermosa Provincia kind of lately, is how those houses there have cost a lot, and I think I should do some actual research as opposed to like what I know. But say the church like does like crumble as an organization, that real estate that goes down too. But apart from that, that doesn't apply to everyone. But people's jobs and people's sort of already like own personal investments in the whole thing, having spent so many years like that alone, people would fight like tooth and nail for to not be wrong, to not have been wrong. But yeah, in this case, they totally are. Also, in terms of just careers that people in the ministry, what would they do if this church crumbles and they have to start, where do they go from there? It's stuff to think about.
Well, even if the church didn't crumble, I mean, I feel bad for a lot of these people that bring in, they got all this money that they make. You hear all these horror stories of brothers and sisters getting sick and they can't even use their own church. There's hospitales in Guadalajara because it's so expensive. I can't speak on that. I don't know what the prices are. But those services should be a little bit more accessible to people, that don't have a lot of money out there. There's a lot of people have given a lot of money for that church. And to say that, we got this church, they make a lot more money than to just have one church. They should have family or church in different regions of the world for their members, because they're making a ton of money. We think about how now, after the whole pandemic stuff, we've seen them start to get back to members of the community that aren't members of the church. And me and you both know what that was all about.
No, that's just PR. Yeah,
we've never seen them give back to the community. Where does all their money go? They do acquire a lot of properties, from what I've heard. I can't really confirm or deny any of that, but you hear all these stories. You know what I mean? But when you put two and two together and you really start to think about and visualize how much money these people really are raking in, and like, what do they really do with their money? We can go back to Berea. We can touch back on Berea and the whole, need to have to stay ahead of the game with the times changing and staying ahead of the game with media outlets that they've been creating throughout the years. And we were talking about the radio station that I knew about, that I know that was out here in California for at least 20 plus years now, and then they expanded into the internet,
that surprised me that even out like 20 years in California as opposed to like in Guadalajara, they had something like that.
That's the radio station that I'm speaking of, and they would have people on there. They actually had a few people that I knew. Like I said, I grew up in the church, and I grew up around a lot of the major older pastors and ministers in the church, and so a lot of the names that were on the show were very recognizable to myself. So that and
Hmm.
Berea itself as a media outlet that I think was a pretty intelligent move. Once again, I go back to what I was talking about, giving credit to Samuel for at least trying to accomplish one thing with that church. And some of these tactics given that these church have resorted to throughout the years to
Hmm.
kind of give them more exposure throughout the mainstream world outside of La Luz del Mundo, you can't get mad at them. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
A lot of stuff is actually pretty smart, well thought out, really well put together.
Hmm.
If you know about how some of this stuff works, I was talking about how there was a little hiccup with Berea having a death metal band on their show and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's whether they're trying to do good and sometimes it looks bad, or they're trying to do bad, whatever. You got to hand it to them. These people were doing their best to kind of stay on top of what a lot of these other big churches themselves are doing. Not just the Catholic Church, or I'm talking about more like the other big American style mega churches where they're
Yeah.
creating media formats for their religious organization. I can't think right now of all the Christian
Uh,
organizations. You
mhm.
turn the TV on a Sunday in Texas
Yeah.
and you see all the Christian Baptists and all this stuff like that.
Yeah.
They
So
were
someone
amongst some of
like a
those.
Joel Osteen on
Yeah,
TV,
yeah.
and like, yeah.
Yeah,
But
don't get
one
me
thing
started.
that
Don't get me started on
Mhm.
Joel Osteen.
Yeah, I'm
That's
from
another
Houston.
one.
We know him quite well, whether
Yeah,
yeah, whether you go to the church or not. I was gonna say something that that popped into my head also is the sort of the expansion that the church has tried to like push through in terms of its location at like Flowery Branch, Georgia. So like legit trying to like start a whole La Luz del Mundo city there,
yeah, another
or
provincia.
Flowery Branch is its own thing right now. It's its own city for sure, and there's families there, or maybe but the church is has bought some like giant property outside of the city or near it or something like that, and they're
Yeah,
just trying to like have that be a location for people to live and like legit live and like have a whole like La Luz del Mundo community. And then I think they do have a La Luz del Mundo city um
El Salvador, no?
in El Salvador. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know too much about it, but and then but it's interesting, those are interesting like moves that a cult is trying to make. Um
yeah. There's a
uh
whole lot of talk about the
Fine.
El Salvador church and how out there in El Salvador there's some politician out there that has some ties that are very questionable to
Mhm.
a lot of people.
Yeah,
That
the a couple weeks prior to Nathan's arrest, he was out there. He was out over there like doing he was doing some opening or something. I'm not too sure what it is. And if someone knows, please like share it in the comments. I'm trying to remember what it was, but yeah, in the weeks prior to his arrest, he was out there, and there was some politician. I don't know if it was a president, but it was someone. It was just someone who was
somebody,
out
yeah,
there to like shake his hand, and
some real like G
and we're sitting in
luxury guy.
church, and Berea is like broadcasting this to us, and we're sitting in the basement. Like, okay, I guess that's what's up. I guess this is what God wanted us to see today.
Yeah. What was I gonna touch on? Oh my god, I forgot. Oh shoot.
It's all right.
Yeah, I can't remember anything. Anyhow, there was something I was gonna say
Hmm.
in regards to. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You were talking about that they're gonna build a city in Georgia. I remember when
Yeah.
my biological father was still in the church. He's like a lot of people know who he is too. I'm his junior. So when he told me about this, and he said it to me, he goes, "Ay, ¿qué crees? Because allá en Georgia le compraron un montón de terrenos, un montón de tierra y van a hacer una provincia ya con una ciudad." And in my head, I'm thinking that's just so wacky. In his head, he's thinking like, "Wow, we're gonna buy this terreno." I'm thinking Jonestown. He's thinking,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just not. I don't like. I'm telling you, my brain is wired different than that. Like I can't even fake it if I wanted to go back to that church and pretend that all that stuff was acceptable, cool stuff to be down with. I can't get over it, man. I'm over it, and it sucks because being so over that church means that I'll never ever be accepted by my family in that church.
Mhm.
And any ones that do speak to me very secretly, and it sucks like that I have to speak to my family like that.
Yeah.
Some of them have foot in and foot out that aren't very secretive about it, which I'm really proud of that they can talk to me and be open about it.
Hmm.
But these are people that really just got some big huevos they're in that church that they're going to talk to you no matter what. They really do believe in the love of Jesus, and that's what they believe in, and being cool with anybody no matter what. But that's like two cousins of mine. But yeah, man, it's a trip. Life in that church is a trip, and I don't know, man.
No,
I'm recollecting a lot of emotions right now, and just kind of
no, I understand.
thinking about it.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's wild to like think that just all this stuff was, you know, we were stuck in this thing at some point, and it's just all this, there was just all these tentacles headed in all these directions, and we saw them like have some success in terms of just like, you know, the founding of that city, the buying of this property, the expansion of this one specific location, and then you know, this thing comes out, and now just a lot of people are trying to like are flipping against the grain and trying to like stop so much of this happening, you know, eat away at the foundation of what's driving all of this. Did you ever notice growing up sort of like changes in attitudes towards getting an education? Because that's something that has definitely like changed in the church. I know that for sure in the early foundings of the church, you know, Aaron wouldn't let anybody go to the university, and probably Samuel too. There, you know, or probably like a lot of people weren't doing that, but you know, back then there was definitely a stigma against it, and then only recently have people started to want that, have people started to have that allowed more. Yeah, can you share anything about that? Like,
Yeah, I think when I was younger, you know, I'm sure there's always been college educated people in the church, but it wasn't something that was really like, you know, blown up in the church, and something for the church really took a part of being proud of their members. The members and the members' children went on to go to university. I can't really speak on your whole university experience, but what I'm talking about is me experiencing being around other people that went to universities. Now with time changing, and I think that really being able to boast and name drop and say that this certain member of ours went to this, you know, Ivy League university is that something that they can be proud of. I think that they in fact do allow it now. I think before it was more of a thing like, oh, we don't want your kids to go away from home, go have that college experience. They might, you know, stray away from you know, our beliefs, and you know, God forbid they go drink and have parties and go to a college party, right? Yeah. I think that was mostly about before, and I don't think that really was applied to everybody, because I know that for a fact that there are in fact a lot of members of that church, some being a little bit older than me, some being my age and a little bit younger than me, that did go on to go to university as time passed. It was something that the church kind of actually did take pride in, and we were talking about you know, of how they would have a gathering for all the people that would graduate. I'm sorry,
yeah,
every year.
APS. Yeah, I do want to talk about that at some point. So yeah, whenever you want. Yeah, go on.
So I'm actually, you know, I've observed a lot of people with a lot of talent throughout the years be, I don't want to say used, but and then maybe some people might take the word exploited in a really bad way, but you know, the talent's used for the purpose of the church when they otherwise could have gone on to work for, you know, some other company and made a ton of more money, and I'm sure in some way or another, then maybe they'll go tell them, hey, you need to go do this for a church because you have to. You can't go work for this firm or that, you know, place or this or that other company, but they feel obligated to have to stay there. And if they ask them, hey, you know, we've been thinking about a film project, we want you to go do a documentary, and I'm basing this on an actual story of a friend of mine. You know, they use them for the purpose of the church, when possibly that person could have expanded their career and become somebody big in the movie industry, film industry, or you know, I got friends that are animators that are great animators. I got all kind of friends that I grew up with in the church that unfortunately I no longer communicate with, but you know, these people have amazing talents, and I'm not saying they're wasting their talent there, because if that makes their heart content, that's cool. But I just feel they could have done so much more. And I'm talking about tremendous talent too. You know, I'm not talking about some rinky-dink stuff.
Yeah, there's some. So you know, growing up in the church, there's people who are part of who eventually do join the ministry at a certain point when they reach the age of 18. But but then there's also this other path of like joining the going to university and getting a degree. But ideally it's a university within town and it's not out of town, because if you go out of town, you're out of the supervision of your parents and you stray away from the church and the community and the supervision of all these people. That starts to become more like accepted. But it's with the purposes of like, okay, how are you going to channel your degree for the benefit of the church? People legit would like dedicate their degrees to Nathan, to whoever's apostle at the time. And I've definitely seen it at graduation ceremonies where people decorate their caps with like NJG on there. They put sequins or something like that. Or there's also like there's also probably like sashes or something, but for sure like the caps. I know I've definitely seen that.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, they attribute their success and like in their education and attaining it to Nathan, to the prayer of the apostle. This is a blessing from God. I'm going to channel this back into the church. And I may not be out in the ministry preaching the word of God out in like Equatorial Guinea or something like that, but over here in my city, I'm studying. I got a degree in X, and I'm going to become I don't know, an accountant for the church, or I'm going to be some sort of lawyer or architect for the church. This is something I want to talk about. I wanted to talk about APS, Association of Professionals and Students. This is another part of the church. It's not part of it like the way Berea is part of the church, like explicitly a part of the church, but APS is this sort of group that is for church people to just support have some sort of network between those that have like degrees of like higher education and that are have some sort of established like education. And so what they tried to do in APS is, and different churches have their own little chapter of it. I know Houston had its own chapter for many years, and it's grown for sure. And they they do things for the community, like take the teenagers to university, to give them a tour, tutoring sessions, maybe tutoring services.
Is that for just kids from the school or for outside members of the community too?
No, it practically is just for people within the church. It's for church related families that they try to provide this sort of support network for. But I think one of the big things and one of the most interesting things that I got to see was in for many years in Houston in July. Usually in July they would have a whole dinner party for all the church members, all the kids that graduated high school and graduated from colleges and universities. They would have them go to they would rent out like a hotel like ballroom, a hotel ballroom, and a bunch of church people go, and of course they have to pay some sort of amount of money to go, and there's a dinner and there's like a little bit of a speech, maybe there's a talent show. They definitely invite politicians. I've seen politicians get invited. So in Houston we had the last time that I went to this thing, there Sheila Jackson Lee, local representative, was invited to go. And obviously she goes, she gives her little speech and then she leaves. She doesn't really give a fuck. She's just given like a stage, and it's understandable because she's there to garner her votes. But the church does it and invites people like that for all the youngsters to make them feel like they're special. This church is connected to the community, and we're being heard, as members of this community, and we're respected and whatever by the authorities. And that's just Sheila Jackson Lee. There's other people that I remember, other small local politicians that would go. And they just have like another walking on the stage little ceremony for people that graduated. They have little talent shows. Little kids are involved in the talent shows, but either way, just for us who have like left the church and like come and kind of like look back on this stuff in hindsight, like we know that just the purpose of this was just to build more support for Nathan. Like everyone's there to just for sure celebrate the accomplishments of their children and whatnot, but it's like, if like it's just a matter of like, hey, can you guys please see through this and just understand that this is just another like sort of hype party for Nathan? Because what's the point of getting all this stuff and like getting your education if you're just going to end up like dedicating it back to the dude? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, you're talking about you see people giving so much praise to nation for their own accomplishments. To me, that's always been something really sad. Makes me wonder about how people feel deep inside about themselves, whether they're really think that their accomplishments are based on what this guy says or does, whether they put in a lot of effort to do the things that they accomplish. It's really, to me, kind of a bummer, because I'm a person who likes to hype people up, and in my environment, I work or whatever, and I've been a supervisory foreman position and stuff like that. And I like to hype up the youth, the younger guys, the guys that are barely getting in, and like, hey man, look, this how you do it, man. You give it a shot, and get good at this, and then you accomplish something. It's like, bam, you did that.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine if I was telling these guys, oh look, you try this, all right, man, but you're not gonna do it unless you go, praise this guy, okay, and when you're done, thank that guy. It's like that kind of just makes the whole, I think it kind of just, it's a different mindset that these people have
Mm-hmm.
when they accept that. Like you don't have that sense of confidence or self-confidence, or what I mean. You never really bloom into the human being that I think you deserve to
Mm-hmm.
be when you
Yeah.
work that hard. And then all of a sudden, you're some way that you're raised teaches you to give glory to this dude for something that you did. You know what I mean? I can understand people saying glory to God, but this guy, come on, and I'm only saying that because I'm not saying I know him, not someone like us as a personally, whatever, but come on, man, look who this guy is. I mean, for me at least.
You guys like barely see him. Like you guys see him on a
Yeah,
TV every once in a while, if that. And
yeah,
he's not you guys. And this is another thing. Like people like within the church, there's always a seat. There's always not a seat or a podium, but actually both. A seat or a podium that are always there in the church that are just for Nathan, just for the apostle.
like
There's
a
a separate
throne.
one.
Not even just a seat; it's like a throne.
It's a straight up like, yeah, it's a straight up like throne in the center of
A
the whole thing.
gaudy, a
And
gaudy,
mhm,
gold laden throne. Oh my God! I've always, I'm sorry, I've always had
yeah,
this issue with the gaudiness inside of the church with all the gold leaf stuff everywhere.
yeah,
Oh
it's
man,
just a lot of like gilded crap. It's
yeah, but I think
and that goes back
I
to
think
like the
Liberace would have
architecture.
loved it. Yeah, I think Liberace would have loved our churches.
Yeah, this is Juan Gabriel, or that we could say like the equivalent for people, for the
Yeah,
Spanish speaking people.
him, or who's the guy that used to go, Aries, Walter Mercado.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's perfect. That's perfect. Uh-huh.
Yeah, man.
Um,
So yeah, that and
I was gonna say that yeah, so they always have this church, they always have this throne there present, and that's just a presence in the room every time you go to a service. You're reminded of the man. But and you're talking about how people are taught to not really like revel up in their own accomplishments, and to always like attribute it back to the dude. And the
yeah,
same thing goes for like the tithing too. Everyone's taught to think that this is God's money, and you got to keep 90% of it. So give him his 10%. And the same thing with like prayers every time before you eat. It's like always remember that you got to sit down, and so you get to pray, you get to have some food, and you're sitting with your family. But fundamentally, it's because the man prayed for you at 5 a.m. this morning, and he really like loves you, and he's thinking
yeah.
about you all the time. Yeah, it's weird. That's a weird aspect of it all.
Yeah, in our family, to be quite honest with you, my family, they kind of got away from church a little bit. We didn't pray at every single meal all the time. We kind of did when we go through our phases when we go to church a lot. And closer to my parents' divorce, we did it less and less. And, one thing I want to talk about, people are going to talk about me and me leaving church because my parents left church and stuff like that. Let me tell you guys something right now. I left church because I left church. By that time I was an adult, and now I'm 44 years old. I know why I left church. But back to what I was saying, we didn't get too much into the praying and stuff like that, like other people did, and that guilt that if you didn't pray and say thank you, somewhere Joaquin, because really even like in my grandfather's home, you would think us being Valdez's, we're supposed to set an example that there would be a little bit more talk of Samuel Joaquin in our prayers and stuff like that. And it really wasn't. I don't know. Maybe I don't want to get too much into it, man. But my family's really well known, and so a lot of the reasons why I don't really go to that church anymore are because of things I've become aware of as a member of one of these more as they say, elite families in the church, you become
Mm-hmm.
aware of a lot of stuff that isn't really cool. Back to
Mm-hmm.
the whole double standard thing. So, I don't know. I can't really speak too much about how I felt about, some of what, I can't say too much.
Yeah.
But,
Can I ask you about uh well, what goes through what goes through the mind of someone like you who's already out whenever like Samuel dies in like 2014? Like I know that the first
oh,
shocks of
man.
him, the first shocks of him like potentially, for sure being sick came out in like May of that year, 2014. I remember there was some scares, and then they started to pop, and then they popped up again in November 2014, and then of course like in June 2014, that was the 50th anniversary of him being the apostle. But yeah, what
Yeah.
happens in like November, December of that year, that when you guys hear and then hear that Nason comes in? What can you share about that?
I was sitting here with a real big smirk on my face because
Yeah,
the day that he died, I want to say, and I wish I could screen cap this and share it right now some way. I'll send it to you. I'll look for it. On
for
my
sure.
Facebook, I put something to the effect, it's not the exact word, but something to the effect about like, hey, today there's a dawn of a new day. I remember using those exact words. And basically talking about how, if what I believe deep down in my heart is true, then, the next person that's going to be in charge of this church is going to be somebody from this family. Mark my words.
Hmm.
This is before that song got appointed to do that thing. And so I had some family that immediately, unfriended me on Facebook. And, some I never spoke to again. A lot of friends too that unfriended me. They knew where I was getting at. I was kind of saying it kind of indirectly. I didn't say, I wouldn't talk about someone or nothing, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of friends that don't go to church that were my friends that are like, what are you talking about? But the ones that got it, got it. And they unfriended me. And so I knew it, man. I knew it. I knew it right away. I was like, oh my God, here we go. And I knew what to expect. I knew that somebody was going to say that there was dreams and all that. And it's sad because, to be quite honest with you, like, I'm a person there. I'm a very critical thinker. I look into reading about stuff and reading about dreams. And I watch some Discovery Channel, and it's not my main thing to watch and read about and stuff like that, about dreams and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
how the brain is wired to work to create dreams,
Hmm.
whether you're conscious when you're asleep and stuff like that, it's it's something that can be motivated by your surroundings and by what you're going through all the time. I mean, I've had instances in my life where I'm going through something kind of stressful, something that causes me kind of some sort of anxiety, and I have dreams based on that subject that's creating anxiety for me, even more now that I'm older. And so I'm not surprised to hear stories of people talking about, oh, they dreamt somewhere that the next person was going to be my son. The brain was getting wired to believe that. And if you pay attention to, there's a lot of things that people pointed out, especially about the silhouette drawing that Leo or
Yeah.
something like that, right? You've seen that drawing. It's
Yeah,
kind of,
I've heard of that. I don't buy it too much, but there's other
yeah,
things to point that there's better points to make about how they were already hinting that Nason would be the next in line, or for sure someone in the
yeah,
family would be next in line.
yeah. So
Um,
there's a lot of theories, right? Whether those are true or not.
mhm.
There's so many other things too that you were talking about. We're pointing and hinting to the fact that he's going to be the next guy in charge. I saw that. Because
So, mhm.
I'm not going to pretend I never went on the church service stuff, or even, there was already Mundo pages and people were already sharing about how, little clips of videos where they were kind of already hinting to this dude being the next guy in charge.
Yeah.
And it
Mhm.
all makes sense. There's a lot of thoughts that I think that a lot of us ex-members have in common that are based on the things that are very visible to a lot of us that have an open mind. They're
Yeah.
very noticeable to us to take and see it differently than the person that's brainwashed. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So, I think that a lot of people, whether we show them that things are outright a certain way with a real super duper nice concrete evidence, it just slaps them in the face. They're just not going to want to believe it. But there's people like me and you that are a
Mhm.
lot different type of critical thinkers who put things in a different perspective to allow things to sink in and kind of analyze and be like, oh, well, that is kind of trippy, huh? So
Yeah.
yeah, so the
Mhm.
yeah,
My,
so
my my
the
favorite
day,
my favorite thing to say, if I can jump in, I'm not sure if you're
uh,
my favorite thing to say in terms of just like Nathan coming, like it being no surprise that Nathan ends up being the next person in the throne, is in those last Santa Cenas of Samuel. I know for sure in the last ones, I can't say how many, but I know I can remember that for sure in those last ones, it was Nathan who was the hype man that would start the Santa Cenas prior to Samuel coming out. It's Nathan who would go up to the podium at 3-4 p.m. whenever they would start them. He would go start the prayer, start some singing, start the service for members for individual members to go up to the mic to go to sing a song or something, give a salmo, etc. And then eventually Samuel comes out. It was Nathan. It was Nathan who was doing that right there. In those last years, those last Santa Cenas of Samuel. And then even like so that brings some sort of acclamation to the rest of the community to who that guy might be. The Santa Cena is the most important thing, and so everyone's eyeballs has to go plug in at 3-4 p.m. and they know that there's a dude there that's not Samuel. So this is a different person. This is Samuel's son who's there hyping the whole thing up and starting it. Samuel's going to come out eventually. That gives people an acclamation with who Nathan is, whether they're from California or wherever he used to be stationed at.
Yeah, he went to San Diego for a little bit.
Yeah, and then also like when it comes down to the Santa Cena right after when Nathan got arrested, 2 months later, it's his son, it's Adoraim who's running like half the thing, along with
where he was like all freezing up and
and he gives like his bad performance, and it's just not a good look. But like it's so pain, and he's not doing a good job, and he's never been, at least from my experience, he's never been known for being someone who can do sermons and stuff. I wonder what his history is with like giving sermons. Has he ever given a dominical? That's my first question. To like a nice substantial church. But either way, like it was just so blatantly obvious. And that was the last day I actually went to church. It was so that I physically went. It was so blatantly obvious that the dude was just caught on the back foot, and he's like, well, my dad told me I have to do this, and I just got to do it. And I may not be good at it, and this is the most important thing. Everyone that's part of the church has their eyeballs glued to this thing. Time to go speak. And it wasn't a good look, but like it's just so blatantly obvious that this is a family that really tries to have that so far does hold the monopoly on this like spiritual this whole like spiritual scheme.
Deep down inside, man, I wish that none of this stuff that was being said was true. I wish none of this was real.
Yeah.
But then when it follows a certain pattern, it's kind of like, wow, man, how can this just keep going back to the same family over and over? Then it gets kind of hard to believe. Maybe one son, it would have been passed down one generation, okay, then two, it's different. And I'm also speaking from a standpoint of just a regular member.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how could you not notice that? As a regular member, how could you not notice it is kind of strange? They bring up scriptures in the Bibles and stuff like that about how there are examples of this. I forgot who or where, but to me, you look at everything else, it just doesn't add up. You know what I mean? You really got to be really ignorant, and I don't mean that in a bad way. You're gonna say, "Oh, he's calling us ignorant." I'm not calling you ignorant. I'm talking about you just learn the facts that are there, but sitting right in front of your face. And I'm talking about when it comes to every aspect of this church, from how they do in fact operate, and how you see this pattern and you choose to ignore it, to now that this whole rest is going on, you see facts in front of you, and people still choose not to get it. But I don't think we're really here to reach out to those people. We're here for those people that do have that analytical ability to be able to look at things. And if they're searching for facts, if they're searching for truth, I'm just here to share my experiences. I'm not going to share cheeseman. I don't want to talk about another person spoke about on their video, even whatever my mom speaks about on her videos. A lot of people are going to know who I am. I'm here to be very realistic with all my experiences, and with everything that I'm sharing. People are going to be hurt by a lot of the things that are perhaps the truth. And they're going to want to attack me and say all these horrible things. But It's like some people just need to come to terms, and I think a lot of people that are going to be using this type of information are be the quiet ones that aren't going to be saying anything. The ones that aren't the fanatics. That's what me and AJ are here for, just to provide, also that I was just talking to one of my uncles the other day, and I will bring up people that I'm related to because
Mm-hmm.
it's not gonna the only people that I care about knowing who I'm related to, I already know who I'm related to in
Mm-hmm.
this whole ex Mundo world.
Mm-hmm.
Sergio Mesa is my uncle, Tavi Islam's my mom.
Yeah. Tell him I said
I
hi.
got,
Tell
yeah,
all these folks I said hi. Hi.
I will. Marta Serna is ex-wife of my tío
Mm-hmm.
Sergio, and I communicate with all of them. And there's a lot of talk about us. You talk about the gaslighting and the things that go on after you come out and you speak out against the church, and people want to talk bad about it. It's like, well, one of the things that bothered me the most, and I want to just take a little bit of time in your format here to use this here to kind of clear things up. People are talking about how we're all from one family and everybody thinks that we're all conspiring against this. This is no, it's nobody's conspiring against anything. Like I haven't spoken to a lot of my family, including some of these ex-members, for years, some for decades, because of what occurred to us throughout, because of the church and the separation. And then even after some of us left, we just didn't reach out because we're kind of stuck in that world, and then you kind of get used to deal with life as it is. But there is
Mm-hmm.
no organized effort of us family members to try to speak out and bad against the church. We happen to actually come in contact with each other because of all that's occurred lately, and now we're sitting
Mm-hmm.
here supporting each other. And guess what? It just so happens to be that we're all from the same family. But just like there's a bunch of members in my family that have been affected by this, there's a bunch of other family members that are affected by this in other ways. A lot of them just aren't ready to come out. Some of us can have contact with some of these people, and some of us don't know who each other are, and I hear stories about, oh, so and so's out of the church, and that's so and so, and I just get a smile on my face. It's really something that really does make me happy, because you do feel it's sad. It's sad when you feel you can't express yourself a certain way, and when you hear all these things going on, you hear about kids getting raped and stuff like that. That's something I'm extremely against. And if you can't voice that opinion, and you kind of got to pretend this, maybe you're okay with it, it's tough. So for people to actually come out and say, hey, I don't want anything to do with it, and they stop going to church, and everybody stops talking to them, it's tough.
Yeah.
So us as a whole family, we're doing the best to support our family that is in fact direct victims of the church, of the leader of the church and stuff like that. But that's all I can speak on. I don't like to share too much of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to drop anybody's names and stuff like that. It's just I just want to take a little bit of time to kind of let everybody know that there's no effort that's organized by our family to speak out against the church, and where we're out here, a handful of messiahs, and trying to take them down. It's not like that.
Yeah.
I don't.
And if anyone knows that, it's the prosecutors. That the prosecutors have they have a completely different, they have an understanding of this organization, and they just have a network of a lot of things that are happening a lot across different families that stretches over to Mexico also. And it's not all a hit job, and people are only thinking it's some sort of like cyber hit job because it's so incomprehensible for them to come to terms with the fact that the dude very likely for sure did what he did, and
Yeah.
And he's not out, and there's apparently evidence on some in some databases somewhere, and the stuff's going to be shown in court. It's can't fake all that stuff.
Yeah, and this goes along with me not wanting to share anything that's not already public.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people question, oh well, this guy never did that to me, or this guy never did that to me. And you got all these miembros de la banca, as they say in Spanish, that coming out and saying all these things. And maybe some of them not so much miembros de la banca, but you guys got to understand that if you look at some of these things that have been said in court and some of the public records, and if you look back at some of the people that are actually coming out and saying and sharing these stories of things that happened to them, not only by Nason but Samuel Joaquin, like this, a lot of these victims are females and children and boys and girls, whatever, that are already part of these elite families. So it's very well known families in the church are not. I don't want to say allow this to happen to their kids, but this happened to children that are members of families that are very well known in the church.
Yeah, that have been part of it for so long, and that have are married to other, that there's just a history within a certain sets of families, and how they've grown over time with each other, and then with the church, and then of course that was also part of the modus operandi of how certain people are plucked out of the flock. They were careful in who they asked for, and who they tried to isolate, and tried to lure into privacy with the apostle, whoever it is at the time.
Yeah. So it's something that's really well thought out. I mean, think about it. First of all, if you're a thief or whatever, you're a criminal, you're going to commit a crime. The whole idea is to get away with it, right? And so in getting away with it, you're going to take as many precautions. You're going to think about it. Wonder how the heck you're going to steal that bag of gold, or you're going to go commit that rape, or you're going to do something, and you want to get away with it as clean as possible. That's the whole idea of that. So if a majority of the people in that church say, well, I've never seen them do it, that's the whole point of this dude doing what he did in the fashion that he did. He's not trying to get caught. Even though in his head, when he's doing whatever he's doing, he may tell the girls something, to convince them that he knows in his head, I'm just going to say this little thing and make them think this is normal. But he knows he's doing something wrong, obviously, dude. Or else, if it wasn't something wrong, then it would be accepted by all society. He obviously knew it was wrong. So I don't know. There's a lot of talk about what they say are the inconsistencies of what's going on in the current case against them, and there's a big amount of misinformation being given. I mean, I keep seeing these comunicaciones coming out by the ministros or whatever. Every time there's some kind of news that needs to be given to the public, you see the thing with the letterhead and whatever. I don't know how true all that stuff is, whether or not it's coming from them. I'd like to believe that they are true, but man, the amount of misinformation given to them when you understand and you have other means of trying to figure out what's going on is in the court is true or not as you believe it, and then you go see the church telling something completely different. It's sad. It's sad. It's sad for the people that really believe that you're not allowed to go look and get information elsewhere. So that's also what we're also here for.
And that's where the conspiracy theories come into play. If this inexplicable thing is happening, then there must be some sort of cabal of mustache twirling Catholics somewhere that are up to doing this stuff. And then people are only entertaining these ideas because the whole thing is unbelievable to them. They've been taught their whole life that this is something like this is just totally impossible.
Oh no, it's very possible. I mean, that's the thing though, that I question myself. Like if I really, I don't have any communication directly with any La Luz del Mundo members. I won't go bother them at their church and sit there and ask them and try to. Sometimes I wish I could stand up for the church, and be not be a jerk, but just like, hey, we talk or something. But that's never gonna happen. What would you do though? What would you do if your kid came to you and told you something like that happened? You hear the stories. I hear the testimonies on Luis Carlos Reyes and some of the people, and how they say that their mom or dad has told them, hey, you don't do that, and you're gonna be fine. Oh, you're a brave girl, or whatever. Is it a cultural thing that they've developed within the church? I mean, I never felt like that in church. Like there was just okay to have creeps around or something. I don't know. I would hope that the church isn't actively getting convinced to believe that this type of behavior is acceptable. If he is found guilty of the crime, I hope that people don't comes to that point, because we've heard of different
Mhm.
religions and stuff like that where they get creepy shit going on, and somehow, some way, this becomes like a ritual, or you're forced to believe it's okay or something like that. And that's
Yeah.
a part of the religion. You're supposed
Yeah.
to submit in that fashion. But I hope it's not like that. I hope it's not that heading towards that. I don't really believe that this organization as far off as to do something crazy like they did in
Yeah.
Jonestown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think so. I think there's been a lot of talking. I think there's some pretty tricky people in that church, and there's been a lot of conversations with other people about that. But I
Mhm.
would hope not. I think we're too far along right now in an information age where the information out there will still, even if there's a person that still really wants to pretend like they're really uh, down for the church. I think there's still enough information out there to make them doubt that, like, oh, but what if this dude
Yeah.
is really a bad guy?
Yeah. But let's say like one of the silver linings to this whole situation is that we're in a situation collectively as like a community, as like people who have been tied to the church and who have left, who at least know about the church. We're all going through this one collective phase right now where we have this trial like zooming in on us as it gets closer over time, and we have this moment of reckoning happening. Is basically the point, as opposed to like the Jehovah's Witnesses, who are their own like high demand group, and they just it's just a matter of like people get out whenever they do get out, and they or something, or a group like the Mormons, who have a thing that who have people that trickle out every at different paces. And it's not all at one point like it has been with us, where it was the arrest, and that started a lot of movement and growth of people who started to leave the church and started to doubt and started to inform themselves. And yeah, that's basically kind of the purpose of this channel, and like conversations like this, and the
Mhm.
XLODM community, and all that stuff is, we're trying to like, that the iron is hot right now. The iron is still in the oven, not in the oven, it's in the kiln, or wherever, however the analogy would work.
Analogy.
Uh, however it would work, the thing is, the thing is lit, and it's just a matter of us just like throwing as much doubt at it as much as possible, so that when that big moment of reckoning comes, we make it so easy for people to get out, or just
Yeah.
have just all the information out there for them to dive into. And then it's also
Yeah.
and then it's also a matter of like, teaching people about these high demand groups, and just having a more sophisticated and better, just think better about like religion, and what the purpose of it is in your life. Because I don't want people falling into another cult. Yeah, these people, La Luz del Mundo is a group of people who has its most foundational like beliefs right now being shaken. And I don't want them to be vulnerable or considered vulnerable, and have some other like um uh Nason-esque kind of person, sweet talk them into their own group, and then just who knows what happens there.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
The future is I don't know, man. I don't know whether to feel scared for what may or may not happen in the future. I'm
Hmm.
hopeful for a lot of things because, as a person that's been pretty active online and stuff like that, I get people reaching out to me. It's been a lot less in the recent months because I've been a lot less active. And uh and so people aren't really responding to me after I would post a video or two, something like that.
Hmm.
But I don't know, man. It's scary. It's scary to say the least.
Hmm.
In one sense, because I'm afraid of the family that I really will never ever see again. Because I think that there's a certain element of the population within the church that won't even accept it because they are so invested throughout the generations that their name and their means too much to them to want to be even one member of a whole family that decides they want to leave, or whether they're gonna accept the. I don't know, man. It's just tough. I don't know, man. That whole subject right there of the aftermath is just the part to me that kind of makes
Yeah.
me the most emotional is just coming to terms with the end of this. Because I know that, like, for example, my family, there's a lot of pastors and a lot of families. I don't have the most, but I have a few.
Hmm.
But then everybody that surrounds them that looks up to them for being a pastor and stuff like that. If they give the word and say, hey, we can't ever talk to him no matter what, even if he was right about our apostle. You know, I I do hope that there's a certain point of
Yeah.
evidence, a certain
Mhm.
level, a certain amount of evidence is given out to the public to be able to prove that we were right. Although I know it's a very sensitive matter and everything like that, but I
Mhm.
don't know if even that much is going to be enough. But then there's, I'm really hopeful more than anything. You know, I'm a person that's, I try to be as selfless as possible about this whole process, and I'm really more looking forward to other families to be able to reunite. You know, the people that don't
Yeah.
have people invested in the ministry and stuff like that. That people that really have an easier time to leave. You know, there's a lot of people out there that don't have their whole family, their grandmothers and grandfathers and you know aunts and uncles and sisters and stuff like that. Don't have the whole family. It's just portions of family or maybe a little bit. Because that church has grown a lot. They've converted a
Yeah,
whole
for
lot of
sure.
people. They've brought in a lot
Um,
of other people from a lot of other ministries. You know, I remember they always take it as a big victory for them to bring in a person that was Catholic. That was like the biggest thing.
yeah. Yeah. So that's a whole like interesting thing too. I want to talk about one day with someone. It's sort of aftermath predictions of like how the Joaquin family will react, and then how the different parts of the ministry might react. Um, what sort of structural changes, if any, the church goes through, what sort of like ideological changes it goes through. That we've seen visual changes happen within the churches, where like Nason's logo and image is like taken off of a lot of, yeah, taken off of some of the places after being plastered all over the place. There's so many before and after images that came out in like spring 2020 of that was really interesting. um,
I
and then
used to do a
also of
video.
course, like with families, there's going to be a lot of there's going to need to be like instances and sessions of like truth and reconciliation with people, and this happens across like different dinner tables. And it's literally already happened now. So some people have told me about instances, sessions where they've had with their family, where they just get together and they're just like, we're going to talk all night long. What the fuck just happened? How do we get out? What are we doing together? But yeah, that's going to come down the line too, whenever the trial does come to a close, or whenever just the situation reaches a boiling point. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, you were talking about the pictures being taken down. Yeah, they did that here in
Yeah.
my town too. Yeah, you know, you're talking about whole families also sitting down. Yeah, I have yet to meet or hear about a whole family that's gotten out that way, besides myself and my immediate family.
Hmm.
Um, and it's funny because a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're really lucky that at least your mom's out." And a lot of people know I'm not really that close to my father. We were for a second, and then actually this whole thing that happened with the church caused for us to not ever speak to each other, not
Hmm.
speak to each other since then. I'm not really bummed out on it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I've learned to live with this pain, man. It's not something really that really makes me want to cry as bad as it kind of used to before. I
Hmm.
learned to deal with it. Another thing too is kind of hardens you up to not have family around, which is kind of not really a good thing though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to be such
It's
a
just
hard ass.
survival. That's just survival techniques that
It
people
is.
have to get into.
It really is. Apart from all the stuff I've gone to outside of the church and on my own personal experiences, but like emotionally, everybody that knows me from when I was a kid, from when I was a little boy, knows I was a lot more of a sensitive kid. I'm not saying I'm a tough ass now, but I'm a lot
Hmm.
tougher now, and I do attribute a lot of it to my experiences there because you see other churches kind of reach out to people when they leave the church, and they'll send people out to kind of speak to them, and they kind of do it at that church too. You stop going to church, you stop getting money, they'll send somebody out there like, hey, why don't you come to church? But like
Hmm.
if your son leaves church and your kids are still going and the parents are still going, they won't come out and look for the son and go put an effort out there. Hey, does he need anything? Is he getting into alcoholism, drugs, gangs? Let's try to help him out. Let's try to find some resources for him. There's no effort put forth to that. And when I seen how other people that were church, La Luz al Mundo, put more effort into wanting to help everybody and anybody, regardless of what religion you were, you see that outside the church with other organizations and even other churches. And it makes you wonder, like, man, is it my church really caring about me. You see that. There was a church that I ended up at one of the men's homes when I wasn't doing too hot when I was a youngster. I was 17 years old. I was living out in River San Bernardino, or
Mm-hmm.
Redlands, California. And I
Yeah.
wasn't doing too hot. And I ended up at a men's home. And this is a men's home for a church called Victory Outreach. I don't know if you ever heard of them. And they're kind of considered like the Cholo church. They help rehabilitate cholos and people on drugs and people coming out of prison and people going, that are homeless and stuff like that. And I remember when I left the church, I was telling one of my cousins, and he seen me, and he seen that I had a little tattoo on my wrist. And he goes, "Man, where you been at? What you been doing?" He's older than me. And I tell him about this church. And he goes, "Oh, that church." He goes, "We kick him out of here. This is our neighborhood. This is in East LA. We don't want them around here." And I kind of want to tell him, like, well, they helped me when not even you guys would come out and help me. They offered some
Mm-hmm.
kind of support for me when you guys didn't support me. These are strangers, dude. I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of other churches that weren't La Luz del Mundo give a lot more that had a whole lot less than La Luz del Mundo.
Yeah.
I've seen a small church ran by a man that had a 20-person congregation. I had to go to his church to go do a work project where we're not work project, a community service because I had ran a red light through a camera. People have a field day with my red light running. All
Uh-huh.
the all the all the enemies. Anyhow,
Uh-huh.
so they sent me to this church, man. Guy had about 20 people in his congregation, and everybody was poor in this poor part of town out here. And then after he was done, those people would go into his kitchen that he built, and they would feed all the homeless people in the neighborhood. I shit you not. Over
Yeah.
sometimes it'd be almost 60, 70 people. Didn't seem like a whole lot, but this is a tiny place
Mm-hmm.
serving a small, tiny part of the community. So he served more homeless people and served more needy people than the people that came to his church. And he did this with money out of his own pocket, donations, and he did this 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
I never in my life saw anything like that ever occur in Ozone Mundo.
Yeah.
It's a sad thing because I know that there are people with really big hearts in
Mm-hmm.
Ozone Mundo, but they're meant to feel that anything that they give should be appropriated to that church and that they should not even ask anything.
Yeah.
When
It's
they
just
say,
that
"Oh,
they're good people, but it's a bunch of good people. But it's just like they just have bad ideas in them that have just been hammered into their head, over years.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
let me focus on that
Mm-hmm.
more and more and more and more and more and more." And I know that there's a lot of discussion, and I haven't always been the nicest guy because when I get attacked, I attack back. I talk a lot of crap to certain individuals. I don't talk to people as a group
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook and stuff like that. But there's some outstanding people in that church that I grew up with. You know, there's a certain person that maybe she'll watch this video or not. Maybe I'll give her the link. And she's got a beautiful father, man. Growing up, I remember her father's. I can't say nothing bad about him. Beautiful
Mm-hmm.
soul,
Mm-hmm.
wonderful man, and she's out, and she has an issue where, he's in the church and stuff like that, but he kind of sort of believes that there's a possibility that this guy could be guilty for what he did, but he still goes to church, and the rest of the family does too. Her brother and the rest of her siblings, her sisters and stuff like that, all the grandkids, the mom, everybody, they're heavy, big into it. They all cut her off. And the poor guy, man, he still reaches out to her on Mother's Day. He spent Father's Day with her. He still makes sure he reaches out. So they're, even older people like that are at odds with what they believe. So it's not even how much time you got to invest in that church. I think a lot of people always questioned it. And as nice as this guy is, I just think that really, he does have a timid personality. I think he was just too timid and didn't have that strong personality like me. Like I said, I'm a jerk. I'm a dick. I know
Mm-hmm.
I'm holding off. I'm holding off. Like I can break
Mm-hmm.
it. I can break down, and the Hulk comes out, and I can be a jerk. But that's not how you deal with the matter of this way of this
Yeah.
gravity. And this guy, man, he is a beautiful human being. This guy, I'm hoping some way somehow that family stays together when all this is done and over with. And man, I wish I could close my eyes today. And when I open it, I wish it could be the day that this is all over with. And I either hear good news or I hear bad news. I'm ready for it, man.
Yeah.
This is
It's
this is a long time coming.
Yeah, it's a long time coming, and I try to remind myself and other people of this, but there's gonna be another side to this, and the impact is being had on the church right now, and we at some point there's another side to this, and I just can't wait for us to have some sort of series of like XLDM parties that happen throughout. Like we could literally organize that. We could have that happen in different parts of different parts of the world where the church is where the church was present, etc. Yeah, how are you feeling about time? Because I actually have to go in like 15 minutes. I
No,
think we
man.
should
Yeah,
wrap
I'm
this
ready. I'm
up
ready.
and like,
I'm ready to cut this down. Yeah, and the whole
yeah.
idea of
Hmm.
having parties, and even if it's for people that can't get to a place where we're all gathered, even if it's like a
Hmm.
virtual gathering of people that
Yeah.
are out, that are out. That's another way we can say it. We're out of the La Luz del Mundo closet.
And
And
then maybe even like just make it easier for just to have Zooms where people can just talk, or just sessions, sessions for people.
yeah,
It doesn't even have to be like actual parties. It could be like actual sessions of people that just want to get together and talk about stuff and like talk through things. And um yeah.
yeah, man.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Do you have
we've
any
talked a little. We
mhm,
talked a little bit about trying to do these recordings in other ways, maybe inviting other people, maybe do a live chat and doing all kinds of other things, man. Your
mhm,
your channel to me is like a really fresh channel. Because to me, it's a fresh breath there. Although I'm very fluent in Spanish, I kind of have a little bit of hard time communicating
mhm.
certain words in Spanish. I get really worked up sometimes, and when I do, my brain doesn't work as fast as my heart does.
Yeah.
So for that was what attracted me to you. The fact that we wouldn't have to get into the theology aspect of the church, I feel like it's not really something that should be spoken of. I feel these guys as leaders don't believe in it. They don't abide by it. It's it's not even necessary for us to bring up. But I think in the future, do a lot of fact sharing with the
Mhm,
public and stuff like that, so that we can allow the public to kind of look at things maybe in another type of more realistic type of way. Maybe we can share things you know that are going on in the case in a different manner that a lot of other places do. We already got people doing it a certain way. Virginia Beckett,
mhm.
basically doing her translation, which is an excellent job. But
Yeah.
as far as how we're taking in this information, and how it's okay for us to feel this way, maybe we can, I don't really have any experience with helping any family still in get out, because, like I said, whoever's in is in, and whoever's out is out. But anybody else that has any information to kind of share, any kind of strategy to try to provide for somebody to come at somebody that probably to talk about
Mhm,
is really a really touchy subject for a lot of people. I mean,
mhm.
God, I don't know if you saw the video of a guy standing outside of someplace in, I think, Mexico City, and he's talking to the Luz Mundo members, and he's on a microphone, and they're coming out, and he was saying something about them, que son, that they're this and they're that. He really wasn't
Did
talking
uh-huh.
crap, but
Is
he
this
was
is this
talking.
recent? Is this recent within the past couple of years? Or is this
Yeah,
more
and
older? Because
yeah, no,
I know that there was someone like that outside of the um the Bellas Artes back in
yeah,
May when Nason had his whole thing. It was probably there. It could be that or
yeah. It
something
was.
like
I
that.
think it was
Yeah.
that, and then they started attacking him. You know what I mean? And it's like, man, people get worked up. I'm like, dude, this ain't even anybody to you. This dude doesn't even know what your name is. You get worked
Hmm.
up over somebody talking about Nason.
Hmm.
It's really a sad situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything all together. This dude doesn't care. You're over here
Yeah.
living in a crappy house, putting all your money together to buy this dude all this stuff. This dude has a zoo. This dude has a
This
lion, a
dude has this.
tiger, a bear. It's a trip. People don't
Uh-huh.
question that. I'm like, I don't got a zoo. I
It's
want a
wild.
monkey.
And they've
Yeah,
gone too to these ranches, but that's like a topic for another day.
yeah.
I don't know, dude. Do you have any sort of concluding like message that you want to put out in like 5 minutes or something like that to
Not
everyone, and then
much.
we can.
Not much, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Your
thank you for coming
platform.
on. Hmm.
Yeah, your platform is awesome. I know it's newer, it's fresh, and I know that there's a lot of people out there reaching out and saying that they wish they could have more, people speaking out that are actually part of the organization or were part of the organization. I'm hoping that's something I can provide. You know, Anybody looking to speak out, reach out to AJ. Maybe do it if you're looking to do your own channel. If you're afraid of the things that may come. People talking about. I've dealt with everything. I mean, if things really get too bad and people are threatening your life, as some people may have heard, call the police. Keep track of all that stuff. I'm not gonna say it doesn't happen. It's happened to a lot of people, stuff like that. But man, somebody I hate to put it like this. Somebody's got to have some balls to speak out. AJ's got some big old balls. So
Really.
this guy,
It's that, but it's also like they like if anything they made them big. Like they tried so hard to program me. Like they made me sit there for hours just to
yeah,
taking in the shit, and then it's like I'm just paying them back.
yeah, man. And
Uh-huh.
so I give you a lot of props for everything you do. If you're looking at speaking out, just sharing anything that we haven't even thought about. I'm sure there's a lot of things that maybe there's a woman in the church that maybe has dealt with something that I don't know, maybe only women go through that. Maybe us men
Yeah.
don't even think about it.
Yeah,
And
I
there's
want to have an episode with a woman to talk about just the double standards and like how the doctrine interfaces with this side of the building versus that side of the building. You know, because they sit us separately, and the sort of Charlinas and the dress. Yeah, I'm actually I've been trying to figure that out for a couple weeks, but that'll come down the pipeline. I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, I think that I want to, more than covering the theology and covering court cases. I think that you'll probably eventually share some of
Hmm.
that stuff like that. But this has got to be, a support for a lot of other people too in the community that we've had. There's been a lot of channels that come and gone, and some kind of stick with certain subjects. But this has really got to be more about, the how we all interact with each other, how we're going to interact with each other as an
Hmm.
ex-member now, how we can be useful for each other,
Hmm.
to be able to provide that support for each other. There's people out
Hmm.
there that aren't as strong as us.
Yeah,
They're gonna need this. It's a form of self-therapy, I think. Yeah,
yeah,
man, that's
and
pretty much it, man.
for
If
sure.
there's anything else you want to say,
No, nothing.
anything else
Just
you
thank
want
you for
to touch
coming
on?
on. This is great that you can like provide the sort of insight to these other aspects of the church that I haven't touched on yet. View of this, and you've been out of it for much longer than others that I know, and including myself. And yeah, I'm just glad that you can be part of this. Tell your folks I said hi, and this is
Yeah,
great. You know, thank you for coming on and sharing this with us.
yeah, man. I look forward to more of this, and look forward to sharing more stuff with everybody else on here. Tell Julian I said
Yeah,
what's up. That guy, I can't wait to meet this guy too.
yeah,
I
he's
think
pretty.
I think he's a dude that's very real. Like he told him, he's very to the
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
All
he's
right,
on the
man.
ball and he got to man. But yeah, we can stop recording now. We'll say bye
All
now.
right, brother. Take
Sweet.
care,
Take
man.
care, everyone.